Chapter 33-37. The battle in the Star River had reached its climax. Qin Feiyang's body was riddled with wounds, and the Ice Dragon's sacred sword was also full of cracks. At the same time, the battle between the Red Longsword and the Horsetail Whisk was also very intense. The strength of the two Dominator divine weapons was equally matched, and it was destined to be a long battle. However, the battle between the Alliance Master and the others below was almost over. After all, the disparity was too great. It was already very impressive that the Blood Hall could hold on for so long. The land of the Heavy Region. It was a desert that stretched as far as the eye could see. But the strange thing was that this desert was black. That's right. Every grain of sand was as black as ink. Not to mention walking into the land of the Heavy Region, even looking at it from afar, it gave off a strange atmosphere. Moreover, in the land of the Heavy Region, there didn't seem to be any living creatures. The deeper regions were unknown, but in the border regions, there wasn't a single trace of living creatures, as if it was a land of death. At this moment, not far from the land of the Heavy Region, there was a small valley. Inside the valley, there were 50 to 60 figures. Most of them were secret guards, and there were only a dozen of them, wearing ordinary clothes. There were men and women, old and young, and their temperaments were all quite extraordinary. But without exception, they all restrained their auras. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, you wouldn't know that there were still people here. At this moment, they were also looking up in the direction of the Blood Hall, their faces full of worry. At the same time, on the other side, there was a giant mountain that was thousands of feet high. At the top of the mountain, there was also a figure standing there. This was a woman in white, about 30 years old. She also restrained her aura to the extreme, like a ghost, silently standing at the edge of the cliff, looking at the people in the valley. Suddenly, there was a trace of fluctuation in the void behind the woman. Following closely, a space-time tunnel appeared. The woman felt something and turned her head to look, only to see a group of people coming out of the space-time tunnel. Dong Xiaoyun. As soon as he walked out of the space-time tunnel, Wang Dafu waved at the woman and smiled. Dong Xiaoyun smiled and nodded, then glanced at them one by one. Finally, her gaze fell on the madman and the white-eyed wolf, and said with a smile, "Your names are like thunder." The madman was not in the mood to be polite with Dong Xiaoyun, and asked directly, "Where are they?" Dong Xiaoyun was taken aback, then shook her head with a smile, and pointed at the valley. Madman walked to the woman's side and looked down. His eyes lit up. Those secret guards are very strong. They are all perfect sovereigns. There are also a dozen or so other people. They can also be considered upper echelons of the Blood Hall. It's just that their statuses aren't as high as Old Seas. However, their cultivations are all perfection sovereigns. Furthermore, they're close to comprehending the Supreme Profound. Dong Xiaoyun explained, "Why is it only them? Where are the disciples of the Blood Hall?" The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. Dong Xiaoyun said in a low voice, "There are too many disciples in the Blood Palace. If they were all outside, they would be too conspicuous. Therefore, I'm guessing that they are inside these people's spatial divine items." When the white-eyed wolf heard this, he raised his head and looked at the Heavy Region again. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. A black desert? This was the first time he had seen it. You can't enter the Heavy Regions, and you can't go too deep, Wang Dafu warned. This madman and the white-eyed wolf were both fearless. He was worried that the man and the wolf would be impulsive and run into the heavy domain. There should be a supreme treasure hidden in such a place, right? The white-eyed wolf mumbled, apparently not listening to Wang Dafu's words. Supreme treasure? Wang Dafu was stunned and bitterly smiled. It seemed like he had wasted his breath. Let's not care about the Heavy Region first. The madman's eyes flashed coldly. He took a step forward and his aura erupted as he directly descended above the valley. Wang Changyuan, the white-eyed wolf, Xingda, Snowflake, the middle-aged man, and the other 57 secret guards followed closely behind the madman. Dong Xiaoyun was about to follow as well, but she was suddenly stopped by Wang Dafu. "What's wrong?" Dong Xiaoyun looked at Wang Dafu suspiciously. Wang Dafu said inwardly, "The Blood Hall hasn't been destroyed yet. It's best if we don't expose ourselves." After all, no one knows what will happen next. Dong Xiaoyun was slightly stunned. She shook her head and said with a smile, "You are really careful." "I have to be careful. After all, we are not facing a small force or a small clan. We are facing the blood hall that rules the Western continent. If something unexpected happens, as long as our identities are not exposed, we can continue to hide in the Western continent." Wang Dafu said inwardly, "That makes sense." Dong Xiaoyun thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. "In the valley? Who is it?" Just as the madman and the others descended above the valley, the dozens of people from the blood hall couldn't help but be startled. They quickly looked up. "Why are you guys here?" When they saw the madman and the others, their expressions changed. "Although we are old friends with the blood hall, you don't have to be so surprised." The white-eyed wolf sneered. "Aren't you guys fighting in the blood hall? Why are you here?" Could it be that the hall master and the others? The group of people was extremely surprised. One had to know that they had left the blood hall to make room for the hall master, the 9 deacons, and the 2 sovereign divine weapons to fight without any worries. Moreover, as the secret guards and managers of the blood hall, they knew a thing or two about the blood hall master's plan. They also thought that there was no problem with the plan. This time, they would definitely succeed in killing Qin Feiyang and the others. But they never thought that this group of people would actually chase them here. Did this mean that not only did the hall master's plan fail, but it had also fallen into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others? "Yes, your hall master and the 9 deacons have already died in our hands." The white-eyed wolf sneered. Anyway, these people didn't see it with their own eyes, and they couldn't feel the fluctuations of the battle here, so they could say whatever they wanted. "Impossible." The group of people shook their heads. "Impossible? Don't you have brains? Can't you think for yourself? If the hall master and the 9 deacons didn't die, would we have left to chase you guys?" The white-eyed wolf looked at the group of people with a playful expression. Hearing this, the group of people felt like they were struck by lightning. Their minds rumbled and their faces turned pale. "Deputy Commander? Secret guards? Why are you with them?" Suddenly, the group of people saw Wang Chongyuan and the 57 secret guards standing behind the madman, and their eyes were filled with surprise. "A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in," Wang Chongyuan said. "What? You betrayed us and joined Qin Feiyang?" The group of people was dumbfounded. Wang Chongyuan sighed. "The hall master and the 9 deacons have already died. What's the use of struggling?" "You bastard!" The group of people was furious. Hearing Wang Chongyuan say so, they really believed that the hall master and the 9 deacons had already died. "You call me a bastard? When we were fighting with Qin Feiyang, what were you guys doing? You guys don't know how powerful Qin Feiyang is. Following him is the wisest choice. Now, I'll give you guys a chance. Give up resistance and follow the young master. I'll give you guys a supreme fortune," Wang Chongyuan said. The white-eyed wolf, the madman, and Xingda looked at Wang Chongyuan in surprise. Wang Chongyuan secretly said, "Since we've already scared them, we might as well take advantage of the victory to pursue and subdue them. As long as we subdue them, the disciples of the blood hall will have nowhere to run. At that time, the entire blood hall will be in our hands." "You're quite cunning," the white-eyed wolf snickered. "I learned it from you guys." Wang Chongyuan laughed flatteringly. "Don't talk nonsense. We're all pure and kind children." The white-eyed wolf glared at him. "Pure? Kind? Good children?" Wang Chongyuan was speechless. "With your morals, you guys are pure and kind? Can you be more shameless?" However, he only dared to think about this in his heart. He definitely didn't dare to say it out loud. Then, he looked at the group of people in the valley and said, "I've already pleaded with the young master. As long as you guys sincerely submit, we won't hurt a single hair on your heads." The group of people looked at each other and fell silent for a moment. The hall master and the 9 deacons had died, and Wang Chongyuan had also joined Qin Feiyang. Now, only Old Hai and the Dark Guard commander were left. Old Hai's body and soul had yet to be rebuilt, so he couldn't bear such a heavy burden. The Dark Guard commander had been missing for so long, so he was probably dead. All the big shots were either dead or injured. It seemed that the blood hall was really done for. Don't think about old Hai and the commander. The commander has already died in the young master's hands. As for old Hai, even if he's still alive, even if he has rebuilt his body and soul, it's impossible for him to protect you. Because his strength is not the young master's opponent at all. Let me tell you another piece of news. The two sovereign divine weapons, the Ice Dragon's sacred sword, have now submitted to the young master. The Ice Dragon's sacred sword, the horsetail whisk, the ancient castle, and the slaughter domain. The young master now has 4 sovereign divine weapons. Is this strength something you can resist? Wang Changyuan shouted. What? Even the 2 sovereign divine weapons have submitted? The group of people trembled both physically and mentally, and their faces became paler. Deep in their hearts, an uncontrollable fear emerged uncontrollably. With 4 sovereign divine weapons, even in the entire sky cloud realm, there was no force that dared to compete with Qin Feiyang, let alone the Blood Palace which was now in ruins. Old Wang, I didn't expect you to be so good at bragging. The white-eyed wolf looked at Wang Changyuan strangely. Wang Changyuan smiled embarrassedly, but on the surface, there was no change. He looked at the group of people in the valley and shouted, "There's only one chance. What are you hesitating for? Do you really want to die?" Boom! The law of thunder rolled out, and the eye of thunder formed by the supreme profound emitted an aura that could destroy the world. It pressed down on the group of people below, making it hard for them to breathe. Coercion and temptation. Sometimes, it wasn't enough to blindly tempt them. Coercion was also needed. Only in this way could one put pressure on their body and mind, forcing them to make a choice. Sure enough, when they saw the supreme profound, the eye of thunder, and saw Wang Changyuan's cold eyes, the group of people immediately knelt on the ground powerlessly. Their faces were ashen as they muttered, "We submit." Wang Changyuan, madman, and the others looked at each other with a smile in their eyes. "I didn't hear you." Louder. Wang Changyuan shouted again, "We submit." The group of people clenched their hands, looked up at Wang Changyuan, and shouted. Chapter 33-38. It can't be. On top of the mountain, Dong Xiaoyun and Wang Dafu looked at this scene with shock in their eyes. Even these people had submitted to Madman and the others? Didn't that mean that Blood Hall had almost fallen into the hands of Qin Feiyang? Terrifying. If Qin Feiyang really took over these people, it would be tantamount to ruling the Western continent. After this battle, I'm afraid the situation of the Sky Cloud realm will change. Wang Dafu shook his head. Yeah. Qin Feiyang, Madman, White-Eyed Wolf. These little guys have become overlords that can't be ignored. Dong Xiaoyun nodded. At this moment, they couldn't help but rejoice. Fortunately, the Demon Hall had chosen to befriend Qin Feiyang's group over the past few years. Fortunately, the Vice Alliance Master had realized his mistake and turned over a new leaf. Otherwise, the Loose Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Hall would have ended up like the Blood Hall sooner or later. However, just as Dong Xiaoyun and Madman were sighing, Madman and White-Eyed Wolf were in a bit of a dilemma. Although these people had bowed their heads and submitted, they weren't willing to submit after all. There were many variables in this. If they betrayed them at the critical moment, it would be impossible to guard against. But now, Qin Feiyang wasn't here, and he couldn't control them. What should they do to avoid future worries? Suddenly, White-Eyed Wolf and Madman looked at Snow at the same time. "What are you looking at me for?" Snow was suspicious. "Blood oath." Madman transmitted his voice. "Blood oath?" Snow was slightly taken aback, and then she suddenly realized that since Qin Feiyang wasn't here, they could only use a blood oath to bind these people. In fact, a blood oath was more useful than an enslavement seal. Because as long as the other party made a blood oath, you didn't need to pay attention to it. If the other party dared to betray you, they would be punished by the heavens. Snow's weapon spirit appeared, looking at the group of people below, and said, "It's useless to just say that you want to submit. Swear. I'll teach you how to swear." Swear? Hearing Snow's words, the group of people's reaction was the same as when Qin Feiyang made the 3 Blood Hall disciples swear in Jinyuan City. They were full of confusion and confusion. Who doesn't know how to swear? Do I need you to teach me? Do as I say. Take out a drop of blood essence. After Snowflake said that, the group of people looked at each other and took out their essence blood. Following closely, Snowflake began to teach him. The blood oath was completed quickly. As soon as the oath was made, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. The group of people was immediately bewildered. What was going on? Don't say that I didn't warn you all in advance. This oath is not child's play. If you all dare to violate the oath, you will really be struck by lightning. Snowflower said. Will he really be struck by lightning? The group of people looked up at the sky. Are you trying to scare a child? Even though the phenomenon earlier was indeed a little bizarre, it was ultimately just an oath. As the saying goes, the most untrustworthy thing in the world is an oath. Did he really think that they would be scared? Therefore, they did not take it seriously at all. Snowflake didn't want to talk anymore. The artifact spirit returned to its body and disappeared into Madman's body. Madman took a step forward and landed before the group of people. He said, "Now, let me ask all of you. Are all the disciples of the Blood Hall in your spatial artifacts?" Yes. One of them nodded. What about Old High? Madman asked. I don't know. The group of people shook their heads. You really don't know? Or are you pretending not to know? Madman raised his eyebrows. I really don't know. When we were moving, we didn't see him at all. The group of people hurriedly said. Madman's brows suddenly tightened. After pondering for a while, he turned to look at Wang Changyuan and said, You should have established a contract bridge with him, right? Of course. But when he self-destructed in the Eastern continent, the sound transmission god stone also shattered, so the contract bridge was naturally gone. As for now, his divine soul and body have not been reconstructed, so he can't use the sound transmission god stone. So now, we can forget about using the sound transmission god stone to contact him. Wang Changyuan said. Madman pondered for a while and said, Even without the sound transmission god stone, he still doesn't know that you have joined us. This might be an opportunity. I was exposed just now, and he had already left the Blood Hall 3 days ago. He indeed doesn't know that I have joined you. Wang Changyuan nodded. Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf seemed to have thought of something and asked, Madman, do you think he might have run to the Eastern continent? The Eastern continent? Madman was stunned. The most dangerous place is the safest place. At this time, the Eastern continent is undoubtedly the most dangerous place for him. The white-eyed wolf said. Makes sense. At this time, none of us would have thought that he would run to the Eastern continent. Maybe he's taking advantage of this and doing the opposite, hiding somewhere in the Eastern continent. Xingda nodded. So, we still have to go to the Eastern continent to find him? Madman frowned. If he is really hiding in the Eastern continent, then it won't be difficult to find him. Wang Changyuan's eyes flashed. What do you mean? Madman looked at him suspiciously. If he really ran to the Eastern continent, then he will definitely contact the spies there. And I also know some of the Blood Hall spies in the Eastern continent. As long as we find them, even if we have to wait for them, we can still find Old High. Wang Changyuan said. Madman pondered for a moment and nodded. This method was indeed feasible. But now, we can't be sure whether he is in the Eastern continent or not. Maybe he didn't go there at all and is hiding somewhere in the Western continent. Or maybe he went to the Southern continent or the Northern continent. In short, before we act, we must first determine his whereabouts. Otherwise, we will be like a headless fly. Not only will we not gain anything, but we will also alert the enemy. Wang Changyuan said. Old Wang is right. We have to figure out where he is going first. The white-eyed wolf nodded in agreement. Madman rubbed his forehead. It seemed that this matter was more difficult than he had imagined. Suddenly, a cold light flashed in his eyes as he looked at the group of people in the valley and said, Call out all the disciples for me. If Old High really hid in a disciple's body and left the Blood Hall, then that disciple might know his whereabouts. What do you want to do? The group of people stared at Madman in surprise. Could it be that he wanted to kill all the disciples? Just do what I tell you to do. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Madman's forehead was suddenly filled with hostility. Seeing this, the group of people shrunk their necks. The dozen or so managers soared into the sky and waved their hands. The sky immediately became a sea of people. There were at least tens of millions of people piled up in the sky, forming a black mass. Not only were there disciples, but there were also many middle-level and low-level managers. After all, such a large blood hall definitely needed a large number of middle-level and low-level managers. And there were many familiar faces among them. These people were the core disciples who went to Sky Cloud Island to participate in the exchange. So many. Madman was stunned. This is inevitable. After all, the Blood Hall has been in the Western continent for so many years. Xingda said in a low voice. Why did they come out? Could it be that the battle is already over and Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo are both dead? As soon as the Blood Hall disciples came out, they scanned the surroundings and began to discuss. Look below. Suddenly, a cry of alarm sounded. Everyone immediately looked down at the valley below. When they saw Madman and the others, their faces changed. What's going on? Why are Madman and the others here? And Wang Changyuan, the shadow guards, why are they standing behind Madman? What's going on? In front of the crowd, a group of middle-level and low-level managers looked at the dozen or so high-level managers suspiciously. The dozen or so high-level managers lowered their heads, their faces full of shame. Say something. Someone shouted. Our blood hall has lost. The hall master and the 9 deacons are all dead. Even the sovereign divine weapon has joined Qin Feiyang. We have also joined Qin Feiyang. The dozen or so high-level managers sighed. What? As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Everyone's face was full of disbelief. Madman glanced at the group of people and shouted, Wang Changyuan, tell them to shut up. Wang Changyuan nodded and took a step into the sky. A terrifying divine aura rolled out and enveloped everyone in an instant. The vice commander of the Shadow Guards has really joined Qin Feiyang and Madman. Our blood hall has really lost. Seeing that Wang Changyuan was so obedient to the Madman, everyone in the blood hall despaired at once. Shua. Madman also took a step and landed in front of Wang Changyuan. He smiled cruelly and said, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Which one of you brought Old Hai out of the blood hall? Come out immediately. Old Hai? Old Hai also left the blood hall? The group of people looked at each other, their eyes full of confusion. White-eyed Wolf, Xingda, and the group of shadow guards all soared into the sky and glanced at those people. However, there were too many people and they couldn't see all of them. No one wants to come out? Madman glanced at the crowd. What are you so arrogant for? If you have the ability, let's fight one-on-one. Suddenly, someone roared. Madman's gaze swept over and saw a purple-clothed youth with an overbearing and arrogant aura. He said indifferently, I've seen you before. Back then, you participated in the exchange. That's right. However, things are different now. Back then, I was just a small success sovereign. Now, I'm a large success sovereign. As for you, you're just a small success sovereign. The purple-clothed youth sneered. So what if you're a large success sovereign? White-eyed Wolf roared and activated instant time. He instantly landed in front of the purple-clothed youth. Then, he activated the supreme profundity of the law of death. The purple-clothed youth screamed miserably as his body and soul were destroyed. Even the surrounding disciples were affected. A large number of them died. This is instant time and the dusk of the gods. He actually grasped the supreme profundities of 2 supreme laws. A group of middle-level and low-level managers were shocked when they saw this scene. Even the higher-level managers couldn't help but feel their scalps go numb. What kind of talent was this? There were so many living beings in the Sky Cloud realm, but to be able to comprehend a single supreme law was already extremely rare, let alone 2 supreme laws. What was even more outrageous was that he had actually comprehended the supreme profundities of these 2 supreme laws. Monster. He was definitely a monster. Chapter 33-39. As soon as the white-eyed wolf made his move, everyone was shocked. It was no wonder that the Blood Hall's people were so weak. The white-eyed wolf's methods were too shocking, because even the demonic hall, divine hall, blood hall, and sacred hall, these 4 superpowers, did not have anyone who had comprehended two supreme laws. The white-eyed wolf looked disdainfully at everyone and sneered. I heard that the Blood Hall also has a few monstrous disciples who have comprehended supreme laws. Now, step forward and let me take a look. But in the end, no one stepped forward. Is this all the Blood Hall's disciples have? Cowards like you dare to say that you can defeat little Qin Zi and little lunatic? How laughable. The white-eyed wolf's face was full of disdain. Don't be presumptuous. A middle-level manager stepped forward, his eyes full of anger. Although he was a middle-level manager, he was also a perfected dominator. You still dare to jump? The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows and shouted, Old Wang, kill him. Boom. Wang Changyuan waved his hand, and the eye of thunder appeared. A bolt of destructive lightning struck down and killed the middle-level manager on the spot. His blood dyed the sky red. Wang Changyuan, you bastard. You betrayed your friends for glory and killed your own people. Another few managers roared, What are you afraid of? Qin Feiyang isn't here. The strongest is Wang Changyuan. If we join forces, even if we can't defeat him, we can fight for a chance for our disciples to escape. Is it really like what Lunatic said? Is this all you have? With cowardly managers like you, it's hard for the Blood Hall not to be finished. With someone taking the lead, there were bound to be others who responded. Many middle-level and low-level managers stepped forward and roared angrily at the dozen or so high-level managers and the Dark Guards. The Blood Hall's disciples were also talking at the same time, cursing non-stop. The faces of the 10 or so upper management and the secret guards were extremely ugly. Of course, the Dark Guards mentioned here did not include the 57 Dark Guards who had opened the gate of potential. These 57 Dark Guards had already sincerely submitted. Now, they were talking about the Dark Guards who had taken the blood oath. There were about 30 of them. Bring out your backbone and your guts. As long as we work together, even if we can't kill Wang Changyuan, we can make them pay the price. The middle-level managers roared angrily. Okay, rise up and fight. Fight your way out. One of the high-level managers roared and charged towards Lunatic. But looking at this scene, the madman in Ingrate's eyes were filled with mockery. Crack. In the next instant, a bolt of heavenly lightning descended from the sky, its aura firmly locked onto the high-ranking manager. What? The lunatic was turned lunatic. Lunatic they lunatic, lunatic and lunatic, lunatic and lunatic, 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 and lunatic, and died, lunatic. They lunatic. They were, lunatic had lunatic Luan Wolf Lunas there. Even Wang Changyuan, Wang Dafu, Dong Xiaoyun, and the 57 Dark Guards could not help but break out in cold sweat. It was because this was the first time they saw something like this. They really were struck by lightning. Just now, Snowflake said that if you break the oath, you will be struck by lightning. You didn't believe me. So what? Do you believe me now? The madman and the white-eyed wolf had mocking expressions on their faces. Boss Xing's face was also filled with mockery. People these days wouldn't shed tears until they saw the coffin. Needless to say, the rest of the higher-ups and the 30-odd shadow guards all became well-behaved. In the face of divine retribution, who would dare to play around with their own lives? However, they were extremely puzzled. What kind of oath was this? How could it come true? This was the first time he had encountered something like this. Madman retracted his gaze and looked at the middle and low-level managers who were causing trouble. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he shouted, "Kill them all!" Seeing the blood oath come true, Wang Changyuan worked even harder. Although he did not swear a blood oath, he was still afraid. Whether it was Qin Feiyang, the madman, or the white-eyed wolf, they were all demons. Streaks of world-destroying lightning constantly swept out, and the terrifying aura shook all directions. Those managers who were causing trouble also panicked. They hurriedly knelt in the void and shouted, "Spare our lives, we also surrender." If those higher-ups and shadow guards were willing to come out, they might still have a chance. But now, in front of the madman, these people were as obedient as sheep. Not to mention making a move, Their fawning eyes were eager to kneel in front of the madman. So, they were all scared and panicked. Needless to say, those disciples were so scared that they were trembling. However, in the face of those managers begging for mercy, the madman turned a deaf ear and ignored them. His expression was extremely cold. Seeing that the madman had no intention of taking back his order, Wang Changyuan decisively attacked. Following a series of screams, about 20 or so managers lost their lives. Who else is not convinced? The white-eyed wolf smiled contemptuously, retracted his gaze, and glanced at the remaining managers and blood hall disciples. Although there were tens of millions of people present at this moment, no one uttered a word. It was dead silent. Many people didn't even have the courage to look at the white-eyed wolf. "I won't feel good if I don't beat you up." The white-eyed wolf shook his head, turned around and activated momentary time, and landed next to the madman. One last time. The person who took Old High out of the blood hall, come out immediately. In fact, the madman wasn't sure, because it had always been their guess that Old High left the blood hall, so they couldn't be sure whether someone took Old High out or not. In other words, the madman was bluffing. He wanted everyone to think that he had already confirmed this point, but they didn't know who this person was. He also believed that as long as someone really took Old High out of the blood hall, then as long as his methods were ruthless enough, he would definitely be able to force that person out. No one answered, right? All right, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Seeing that no one answered, the madman's body suddenly emitted a monstrous murderous aura, and a third eye suddenly appeared between his eyebrows. Blood eye. It was as if it was condensed from blood, giving people a fear that came from the depths of their souls. "All of you, petrify me." The madman roared, and the blood eye scanned the crowd. Anyone who was looked at by the blood eye, those whose cultivation was weaker than the madman, or those who were on the same level as the madman, immediately began to petrify from head to toe. At first, everyone thought that it was just the skin that had petrified, and they wanted to dig it out and break it, but in the end, they found that it wasn't the skin that had petrified, but the flesh and blood. Even the bones in their bodies were petrified. What kind of talent is this? At this moment, everyone's expression changed. You're all finished. The blood eye has opened. Even if the heavens come down, they won't be able to save you. The white-eyed wolf laughed gloatingly. Hearing the white-eyed wolf's words, those who were petrified became even more panicked. And those who weren't petrified yet were also afraid. The white-eyed wolf grasped two of the most powerful laws. If even he said so, then this blood eye must be very terrifying. My body is also starting to petrify. Suddenly, a terrified roar rang out. It was a black-robed youth. His cultivation was a minor realm higher than the madman's, a late-stage ruler. He looked at his petrified feet and panicked. He used his godly power to expel them, but it didn't have any effect. "I'm also starting to petrify." "Don't." The other sovereign's disciples also began to roar in succession. As for those late-stage rulers, although they weren't petrified, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Soon, all the disciples below the early-stage ruler level had their bodies petrified. Only their heads remained. Their faces were filled with fear and despair. They shouted hysterically and begged for mercy. But the madman was expressionless the entire time. He just coldly watched as those people petrified one by one. Because of their struggles before petrification, they all looked like baring fangs and brandishing claws. The madman's eyes flashed coldly. A wave of death energy swept out and blasted at the dozen or so stone statues. With a boom, the dozen or so stone statues shattered. They didn't turn back into flesh and blood. Instead, they turned into ashes and disappeared. What? Seeing this scene, apart from the white-eyed wolf, everyone's expression changed. They died just like that? That was too ridiculous. They were clearly flesh and blood. Even if they were petrified, they should have recovered after death, right? This was the first time Xingda had seen the madman's battle soul. He couldn't help but feel apprehensive. It was no wonder that during the exchange on Sky Cloud Island, Old High had forbidden the madman and Qin Feiyang from activating their battle souls. So it was that terrifying. Little madman, If someone really brought Old High out of the blood hall, then I think that person shouldn't be among those petrified people. The white-eyed wolf swept his gaze over the stone statues and said with a frown, "And?" The madman nodded. If this person was hiding among those people, then he would have definitely revealed himself before being petrified. In other words, if this person really existed, then he would definitely be among those late-stage rulers and late-stage rulers who hadn't been petrified. The madman's gaze swept over those who hadn't been petrified. There were disciples and managers, but who exactly was it? Although the blood eye was heaven-defying and could even petrify late-stage rulers who were a stage higher than the madman, he still couldn't petrify late-stage and late-stage rulers. After all, the difference in cultivation was too great. But if he couldn't threaten their lives, then they wouldn't have taken the initiative to reveal themselves. Suddenly, the madman's lips curled up slightly, and a cold smile appeared. "Do you think that I can't petrify you just because you're late-stage and late-stage rulers? Brother Wolf, activate your second war soul and strip them of their cultivation." The white-eyed wolf was stunned, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. The golden beast figure roared out, and when it opened its mouth, a violent gale swept through the area. Although the war soul had little effect on late-stage and late-stage rulers, as long as the white-eyed wolf had enough time, it wouldn't be a problem. What? Strip their cultivation? Everyone was shocked once more. How many heaven-defying methods did this man and wolf have? At first, some people didn't believe it, but soon, they felt their blood and cultivation flowing away. Although it was very slow, it was indeed there. "I confess, it's me. It's me who brought Old High out of the blood hall." A short while later, a roar filled with fear sounded from the crowd. "There really is someone who brought Old High out." The madman and the white-eyed wolf were stunned, and they immediately looked toward the source of the voice. They saw a middle-aged man shivering in the crowd. He looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf with extreme fear. "A low-level manager?" The madman frowned, and then he sneered. "Continue hiding. Let's see if your bones are harder or my methods are harder." Chapter 3340. At the same time, Wang Changyuan and Xingde looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. They had finally figured it out. "Come here." Madman waved at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man panicked and carefully walked in front of Madman. Madman said indifferently, "Don't be nervous. I am not a devil. As long as you answer my question truthfully, I won't kill you." Where is Old High now? But he didn't know that in the eyes of these people, he was a devil. "I don't know." The middle-aged man shook his head. "You don't know?" Madman raised his eyebrows. "You know what kind of person Old High is. How could he tell me where he is? Moreover, I don't dare to ask such a big shot like him." The middle-aged man quickly explained. "Really?" Madman frowned. "It's true, I swear." The middle-aged man nodded. Wang Changyuan looked at the middle-aged man and suddenly thought of something. He transmitted his voice, "Madman, no, he should know." "What do you mean?" Madman was suspicious. Wang Changyuan thought, "I suddenly remembered that he has some relationship with Old High." "What relationship?" Madman's heart trembled. Wang Changyuan thought for a moment and transmitted his voice. "He is Li Chenghai. I think he is a distant cousin of Old High." "Cousin?" Madman's lips curled into a playful smile. He looked at Li Chenghai and nodded. "Okay, swear to me." With that, Madman waved his hand and Snowflake appeared. "Make him swear a blood oath." "Blood oath?" The middle-aged man was startled. He wasn't outside when the dark guards and the upper management swore, so he didn't know what a blood oath was. And Madman had no choice now. He didn't have the slave seal to see what the other party was thinking. He also didn't have the puppet technique to read the other party's memory, so he could only rely on the blood oath. Once the blood oath was made, if this person dared to lie, he would be punished by the heavens. Under Snowflake's guidance, the blood oath was quickly completed. The playful look in Madman's eyes became stronger. "Did you see that person who was struck by lightning? He was struck by lightning because he swore a blood oath and went against it. So, you'd better behave yourself." The middle-aged man's face turned pale. So it was because of the blood oath that he was struck by lightning. He became nervous. "Now, Answer me again. Do you know where old Hai went? Madman chuckled. Li Qinghai remained silent. Wang Chongyuan. Madman coldly shouted. Wang Chongyuan's eyes flashed with killing intent as a world-exterminating thunder light shot towards Li Qinghai. The middle-aged man's face changed as he roared. I know. He is indeed lying. Madman's eyes flashed coldly. I'm sorry. I didn't dare to say it because I was afraid that he would come after me. Li Qinghai immediately knelt on the ground, his face full of horror. Then aren't you afraid that I'll settle the score with you? Madman shouted. Scared. Li Qinghai nodded repeatedly. Madman took a deep breath and said, Then tell me, where did he go? Li Qinghai said, He didn't go anywhere. He's hiding near the blood hall. What? The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. They were hiding near the blood palace? That old fox was really cunning. If Li Qinghai hadn't mentioned it, they would never have thought of it. The most dangerous place was the safest place. Previously, their thoughts were on the eastern continent, thinking that the eastern continent was the most dangerous place. But in fact, the blood palace was the most dangerous place. Originally, after we left the blood palace, I suggested to let him hide in other places, such as the southern continent or the northern continent. But he told me that there was another place that was the safest, and that was near the blood palace. Because at this time, no one would have thought that he would still be near the blood palace. Li Qinghai said, The older the ginger, the spicier it is. Admirable. Madman shook his head. Sometimes, one had to admit that an old antique like old Hai who had lived for countless years was indeed very shrewd. The white-eyed wolf looked at Li Qinghai and asked, Then, did he tell you the exact location of his hiding place? No, he didn't. He is a very careful person. He won't tell anyone the exact location. Li Qinghai shook his head. Don't keep saying he. We all know that you are his cousin. Madman sneered. Li Qinghai's face turned pale. He just wanted to distance himself from old Hai. Because in his opinion, if Madman and the white-eyed wolf knew that he was related to old Hai, they would definitely vent their anger on him. But he didn't expect that the other party already knew. Inwardly, he panicked. Don't be so nervous. Even if you are his cousin, I won't kill you for the time being. Madman patted Li Qinghai's shoulder and revealed a kind smile. But looking at this smile, Li Qinghai became even more nervous. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Madman didn't pay attention to him anymore. He looked at the dozen or so senior managers and said, Send these disciples to the spatial divine item first. After saying that, with a thought, the petrified state of those disciples was immediately removed. The dozen or so senior managers looked at each other and waved their hands. The tens of millions of disciples suddenly disappeared as if they had evaporated from the world. Give me all your spatial divine items. Madman stretched out his hand. The faces of the dozen or so senior managers stiffened. These were all the disciples of the blood palace. They were the foundation of the blood palace. As long as they were here, even if the giants fell, there was still hope. But if they fell into the hands of Madman, then the blood palace would be completely finished. What's wrong? Want to taste the taste of heaven's wrath? Madman looked at the group of people with ridicule. Hearing this, the eyes of the group of people flashed. They quickly took out their spatial divine items, erased the blood contract, and respectfully handed them to Madman. There were a total of 13 spatial divine items. They were of different shapes. Some were like ancient castles, and some were like stone towers. After Madman dripped his blood on them, he stored them in his sea of qi. Now, even if the Blood Palace Master and the 9 deacons were rescued by Ice Dragon, the Blood Palace would no longer exist. With the disciples of the Blood Palace in his hands, the next thing was naturally the resources of the Blood Palace. Madman looked at the group of senior managers and said with a smile, Do you know who has the resources of the Blood Palace? The first one to tell me will be heavily rewarded. I know. Before the group of senior managers could speak, Li Qinghai roared first. Madman was slightly taken aback. He turned to look at Li Qinghai and asked with a smile, Where? All the resources of the Blood Palace are in the hands of my cousin. Li Qinghai smiled flatteringly. Bootlicker, you even sold out your cousin. The group of senior managers couldn't help but secretly sneer. But Li Chunghai didn't take it seriously at all. He looked at Madman and begged, "I don't want any rewards. I just beg you to spare my life. This is a small matter. As long as you play your part, everything can be discussed." Madman chuckled, but his eyes flashed. The resources of the Blood Palace were indeed in the hands of this old thing. He must find him. As long as these resources were in his hands, the Blood Palace would have no chance to make a comeback. Madman looked at the middle and low-level managers and said indifferently, "Snowflake, make them swear a blood oath to be loyal to us forever." "A small matter." Snowflake chuckled. Wang Changyuan glanced at the middle and low-level managers before looking at Madman and said, "Although we know where Old Hai went, it won't be easy to find him." "I agree. After all, the vicinity of the Blood Palace is too big." Xingda nodded. "Then start a carpet search from the outside to the inside. In short, we must find him even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground." Madman sneered. Hearing this, Wang Changyuan pondered for a moment and frowned. "If that's the case, I'm afraid we won't have enough manpower." "How can it not be enough? Don't forget, we still have 2 helpers, Wang Dafu and Dong Xiaoyun. Old Wang, Xingda, the 2 of you stay here and watch. If anyone dares to act rashly, just kill them." Madman instructed Wang Changyuan and then rushed towards the mountain peak where Wang Dafu and Dong Xiaoyun were at with White-Eyed Wolf. Wang Dafu and Dong Xiaoyun had developed in the Western continent for so many years and had countless people under them. As long as the 2 of them helped, there would definitely be no problem. In the depths of the Star River. At this moment, the Star River that could be seen was trembling and collapsing. On one side, Qin Feiyang and the Ice Dragon's sacred sword were fighting fiercely. It was hard to tell who would win. On the other side, the Red Longsword and the Horsetail Whisk were also fighting to the death. It could be said that the battle this time was even more intense than the last time on White Crane Island. Because there was no help from Little Brat this time, Qin Feiyang was fighting the Ice Dragon's sacred sword alone. It was naturally more difficult and dangerous. The blood in the area of slaughter was boiling. Cracks had already appeared on the blood-colored longsword several times, but they were repaired by a large amount of blood each time. As long as there was an endless amount of blood, the blood-colored longsword could continue to be repaired. Of course, if the other party crushed the blood-colored longsword with an unstoppable force, then no amount of blood would be of any use. However, the Ice Dragon's sacred sword did not seem to have the strength to do so. The sharpness of the 2 sovereign divine weapons turned into destructive storms that swept through the starry sky. "I refuse to accept this." "Why?" The Ice Dragon's sacred sword roared again and again. It was a genuine sovereign divine weapon, while the blood-colored longsword was only evolved from a divine weapon. What did it have to fight against it? Frost rolled, freezing everything within 100 million miles. Huge ice dragons appeared one after another, and their ferocious might shook the world as they charged madly towards Qin Feiyang. "This is not the first time we have fought, but think carefully. When have you ever had the upper hand? So, you should know your own limits." Qin Feiyang's body was covered in blood. The blood-colored longsword released a monstrous, murderous aura that turned into blood-colored dragons that roared in all directions. The river of stars here was dyed blood-red, and it was like purgatory. Rumble. Crack. Even though Qin Feiyang was riddled with wounds, there wasn't the slightest bit of fatigue or weakness between his brows. Because he had already activated the battle character art. Not only had he activated the battle character art, but he had also activated the Law of War. Although his battle character art was only at the peak of the heaven-defying divine weapon art, and his Law of War had only comprehended the 3rd profound, activating both at the same time was enough to greatly increase his spirit and fighting spirit. At this moment, he was like a combination of the god of slaughter and the god of war. As long as his fighting spirit was not extinguished, his body would not fall. Chapter 33:41. Puff. After hundreds of exchanges, Qin Feiyang spat out a mouthful of blood. But as soon as the blood appeared, it was absorbed by the blood-colored longsword. At the same time, The ice dragon's sacred sword was also sent flying, and another crack appeared on its body. It wasn't that easy to repair its damaged body, because it couldn't absorb blood to repair its body like the blood-colored longsword. It could only wait for the battle to end and slowly repair itself. So for Qin Feiyang, this could be considered an advantage. Although there wasn't much blood left in the Blood Sea, he knew that the creatures of the Black Tortoise realm were still donating blood for him. In other words, the Ice Dragon Holy Sword was alone, but behind him, there were tens of thousands of creatures. So strong. Yeah, it's not just the ruler's weapon. The ruler's slaughter domain is also very strong. I originally thought that after breaking through to the half-step Undying Realm, even if I went outside, I would be able to dominate a region. But now I know how naive and laughable that thought was. Just a wisp of the ruler's weapon and slaughter domain's aura is enough to instantly kill me. The Black Tortoise Realm. Looking at the battle on the screen, both humans and ferocious beasts were shocked and fascinated. When would they be able to reach this height? Don't think about it. Hurry up and donate blood. It'll be difficult for the ruler to win this battle. That's right, blood can repair the blood-colored longsword. We can't let the Blood Sea dry up. The ruler improved our lives and created such a good cultivation environment for us. If it weren't for the ruler, how could we have our current cultivation? That's only secondary. The most important thing is that the peaceful and worry-free lives we have are all bestowed by the ruler. We can't help the ruler in battle, but we can be the ruler's backing. Yes, as long as we're here, the ruler won't lose. Immediately, whether it was humans or ferocious beasts, they all rushed towards the western region in groups. Every face was filled with sincerity and determination. This was also the reason why Qin Feiyang dared to fight the Ice Dragon's sacred sword to the death. He had thousands of creatures as his backing, but what did the Ice Dragon's sacred sword have? Although the Ice Dragon Holy Sword also had a backer, and this backer was the Ice Dragon never personally made a move. Clang! The two weapons collided once again. The frost from the Ice Dragon's sacred sword and the blood-colored longsword's killing intent turned into a huge storm that swept in all directions. If it was on the ground, the land of land below, the land of the land, the land, the land of the world. This was the destructive power of a sovereign weapon. Normally, when sovereign weapons fought, they would come to the Milky Way to avoid harming the innocent. Just wait. After I've killed you, I'll personally head to the Black Tortoise world and slaughter every living being there. I'll make those ants regret going against me. The Ice Dragon's sacred sword roared. If he wasn't from the Black Tortoise world, how could Qin Feiyang open the slaughter domain every time? Without being able to open the slaughter domain, Qin Feiyang would have already died countless times. It's all the fault of these ants. You still want to slaughter us? Brothers, let's go and donate blood. Let the ruler kill it. Originally, there were many creatures who did not donate blood because they felt that it would be enough. But when they heard the Ice Dragon's sacred sword's words, they were all angry and rushed to the western region. Many of them even dragged their families to donate blood. Soon, the sky above the western region was bustling. Adults, old people, women, children, and fierce beasts of all sizes occupied the sky above the western region. Looking at the north, south, and east region, there was not a single shadow. They had all gone to the western region. Fortunately, the western region was much bigger than the other three regions. Otherwise, it would not be able to accommodate so many creatures. As for the blood, it was needless to say. The sea of blood, which had already dried up, immediately swelled up like a rising tide. Qin Feiyang could feel the situation in the Black Tortoise world and was moved. They couldn't afford to lose this battle. Not for himself, not for others, but for the creatures of the Black Tortoise world. Clang! The blood-colored sword also seemed to feel Qin Feiyang's will and made a clanging sound. With a thought from Qin Feiyang, a large amount of blood appeared and was instantly absorbed by the blood-colored sword. The cracks on it were repaired in the blink of an eye. Come! Qin Feiyang roared with an imposing aura. At this moment, the Ice Dragon's sacred sword actually had an illusion. Behind Qin Feiyang, it seemed to see the shadows of countless creatures. Moreover, these creatures were staring at it with eyes full of anger and killing intent. It understood that this human was not fighting alone from the beginning to the end. It was obviously a little scared and panicked. Qin Feiyong also saw it and shouted, "Don't make me look down on you in the future. What are you so arrogant for?" The ice dragon's sacred sword flew into a rage and slashed at Qin Feiyong. "Yes, that's it." Qin Feiyong laughed, grabbed the blood-colored sword, and slashed out angrily. With a loud clang, endless sparks shot out, illuminating the starry sky. It was still a situation where both sides were injured. However, Qin Feiyong stabilized his body and attacked again. The battle intent on his body became more and more terrifying, as if a god of war had returned. The damaged blood-colored sword was also repaired in an instant. The ice dragon's sacred sword couldn't do it. The damage to its body was getting worse and worse. Clang. One man and one sword continued to exchange blows. Gradually, the ice dragon's sacred sword began to be suppressed. Although Qin Feiyong was injured again and again, his aura became stronger and stronger. Because at this moment, he had already thrown everything aside. He only had one thought, and that was to defeat the ice dragon's sacred sword and live up to the expectations of the countless creatures of the Black Tortoise world. Clang. About a few hundred breaths passed. The body of the ice dragon's sacred sword was already in pieces. "Shatter for me." Qin Feiyong grabbed the blood-colored sky with both hands and slashed with all his might with a roar. "In your dreams." The ice dragon's sacred sword also roared endlessly. Although they had exchanged blows a few times, they were always evenly matched. However, this time, it was actually suppressed. This anger and humiliation made it hysterical and mad. Clang. One man and one sword collided again. The blood-colored sword immediately began to crack like a layer of spider web. However, Qin Feiyong didn't show any signs of stopping. His hands tightly grabbed the sword hilt. Because he used all his strength, the veins all over his body were popping out. Blood surged out and merged with the blood-colored sword. "Shatter." Qin Feiyong bared his teeth and let out a furious roar. Immediately, accompanied by a loud kacha sound, the ice dragon holy sword's body broke in half and flew out horizontally. The artifact spirit also let out a terrified shriek. Defeated. It was actually defeated by a human moreover. It was only a human at the sovereign realm. Its self-esteem, its confidence, and its arrogance were all shattered in an instant. However, was it over? Obviously not. Clang clang. Accompanied by a heaven-shaking sound, the ancient castle rushed out. In an instant, its body expanded to more than 10,000 feet, like a towering mountain, bringing with it a monstrous divine might as it smashed towards the two halves of the ice dragon's sacred sword. Qin Feiyong, ancient castle. The ice dragon's sacred sword roared in fear. Boom. As the ancient castle descended, the ice dragon's sacred sword's weapon spirit let out another miserable scream. Following that, its body shattered into pieces on the spot. Qin Feiyong looked at the ancient castle and discovered that the ancient castle's wounds had already mostly healed. How could it be so fast? Not only can the origin energy allow the heaven-defying divine artifact to evolve, it can also repair the damaged body of the heaven-defying divine artifact. After saying that, the ancient castle once again charged towards the ice dragon's sacred sword. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyong nodded his head in realization. Previously, the ancient castle should have used its origin energy to repair its wounds. Clang. Following that, he swallowed a life-divine pill, held the blood-colored sword, and charged towards the ice dragon's sacred sword. The ice dragon's sacred sword had already shattered. Pieces of debris floated in the Star River, dim and lifeless. "Don't kill me. I will submit to you." Seeing the ancient castle and Qin Feiyong charging over, it panicked on the spot. As it roared, it fled towards the depths of the Star River. "Submit now?" Qin Feiyong laughed coldly and said, "I said it before. As long as I open the slaughter domain, even if you want to submit, you won't have the chance." As the sound of his voice faded, he slashed at a piece of debris with his sword. With a loud clang, the fragment turned into ashes on the spot. At the same time, the ancient castle also smashed towards a piece of debris. That piece of debris was also completely shattered, turning into fine powder. Quickly stop. If you have something to say, let's talk about it. With my help, not to mention taking revenge on the ice dragon, you will definitely have the qualifications to dominate the sky cloud realm in the future. The ice dragon's sacred sword's weapon spirit roared again and again, filled with fear. Without you, one day, I will still be able to dominate the sky cloud realm. Qin Feiyang's face was cold and indifferent as he shattered another piece of debris. Don't, I beg you. If I follow you, it will only be good for you. Take the ancient castle, for example. You can't control it at all, but I'm different. As long as you give me a way out, I will help you unconditionally in the future. At that time, you won't have to open the slaughter domain and let the creatures of the Black Tortoise realm donate blood to you. Really, believe me, I sincerely submit to you. The weapon spirit was burning with anxiety. If this continued, its main body would be completely gone. Qin Feiyang's heart stirred. He stopped and looked at the weapon spirit. You really submit to me? Really? The ice dragon's sacred sword's weapon spirit was a white figure. Its body was filled with a cold current, and at the same time, it carried a bit of a sacred aura. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the weapon spirit nodded repeatedly. All right. If you make a blood oath, I will believe you. Qin Feiyang nodded. Hearing the blood oath, the ancient castle also stopped. If the ice dragon's sacred sword really made a blood oath, then it could be used for its own use. However, could this blood oath threaten the sovereign divine weapon? Although the blood oath would come true and its power was terrifying, it was still a sovereign divine weapon after all. Blood oath? The ice dragon's sacred sword's weapon spirit looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. You still don't know about the blood oath? I thought you knew. Qin Feiyang said. The weapon spirit said, then tell me, what is this blood oath? Don't worry about that. I will teach you. Qin Feiyang said. In fact, it was easier for a divine weapon to make a blood oath. Last time, Snowflake said that divine weapons didn't have flesh and blood, so there was no need to extract blood essence. They only needed to make an oath in the name of the weapon spirit. Chapter 3342. I, Sacred Ice Sword, hereby swear a blood oath. From now on, I will be loyal to Qin Feiyang. If I betray him, my soul and body will be destroyed. As the artifact spirit finished speaking, a blood cloud appeared above the Star River. A blood mark descended from the sky and quickly merged with the artifact spirit. The blood oath was complete. The castle transmitted, Feiyang, you still have to be careful. I know. I'm just trying to see if this blood oath can threaten a sovereign weapon. If it can, it will be of great help to us in the future. Qin Feiyang thought to himself. The reason why he had never thought of subduing a sovereign weapon was because he couldn't control it. Not to mention him, even a peak dominator couldn't control it. This was because even a heaven-defying divine artifact could directly erase the master's blood contract, let alone a sovereign weapon. Thus, keeping an enemy's sovereign weapon by his side was tantamount to keeping a ticking time bomb. Not only would he not be able to use it, but he would also have to be on guard against the enemy. However, if the blood oath really worked, then he could use it to bind sovereign weapons in the future, including those unruly heaven-defying divine artifacts. This way, he would have no worries. Although this gamble was very risky, it was worth a try. What is this? He looked at the artifact spirit again. Seeing the blood oath merge with him, he was quite surprised. Don't say I didn't tell you in advance. A blood oath isn't an ordinary oath. If you dare to go against it, you will really suffer the wrath of the heavens. Qin Feiyang looked at the artifact spirit and said, really suffer the wrath of the heavens? What a joke. I am a sovereign weapon. Don't say such ridiculous words. Even if there is the wrath of the heavens, can it do anything to me? The artifact spirit didn't care. Little bastard, just you wait. Wait until I repair my body, then I will immediately kill you. It sneered in its heart. It seemed that this person's temperament wasn't very good. He was tempted by a few words. Do you really think that I will follow you and work for you? Naive. Crack. However, just as this thought appeared in its mind, a blood cloud suddenly appeared in the sky above the Star River. Immediately after, a bolt of lightning tore through the clouds, carrying with it an apocalyptic aura, and struck toward the artifact spirit. "You are indeed dishonest," Qin Feiyang sneered as he retreated with the speed of lightning. After that, he stared at the sky lightning and the weapon spirit. At the same time, the weapon spirit fell into a state of shock when it saw the heavenly lightning descending from the sky. This little bastard wasn't joking. Would it really be punished by the heavens? What was even more outrageous was that this blood oath could actually peek into his inner thoughts. "Heaven's wrath," the weapon spirit murmured. Looking at the heavenly thunder, its eyes were filled with disdain. It didn't even have the slightest intention of dodging. Boom! The heavenly lightning struck the artifact spirit. Not good. Immediately, it realized that something was wrong. This heavenly thunder seemed to be different from other heavenly tribulations. At the same time, the oath inside its body shattered into pieces and transformed into a terrifying destructive force. It cooperated with the heavenly thunder and drowned it. Ah! The artifact spirit let out a miserable shriek. At this moment, it truly felt the threat of death. On the other side of the battlefield, the Crimson Longsword and Horsetail Whisk also stopped fighting at the same time and looked over. When the Ice Dragon's sacred sword made the blood oath, they had already seen it. However, just like the Ice Dragon's sacred sword, they did not take it seriously. But they never thought that the heaven's wrath would really descend. Furthermore, looking at the Ice Dragon's sacred sword's current state, this blood oath could really threaten their sovereign divine weapons. Damn it, damn it. What the hell is this thing? Qin Feiyang, hurry up and help me. The artifact spirit roared, its voice filled with an undispellable fear. Whether it was the destructive force of the oath or the lethality of the heavenly thunder, they were all frantically destroying its intelligence. Help you? I told you that the blood oath will come true, but you didn't believe me. Now that the heaven's wrath has appeared, even you can't withstand it. How can I help you? Qin Feiyang's face was filled with a cold smile, but there was a trace of anticipation in his eyes. Although it was a pity to destroy a sovereign divine weapon, as long as the blood oath was useful, then he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to obtain other sovereign divine weapons in the future. For example, right now, wasn't there still a sovereign divine weapon beside him? If the heaven's wrath could really kill the Ice Dragon's sacred sword, and the Horsetail Whisk witnessed this scene, then it definitely wouldn't dare to act rashly. As long as it was forced to make a blood oath, it would be a nail in the coffin and would never be able to escape. Help me. I don't want to die. More than half of the artifact spirit's roar had been destroyed, and its voice had become weak and weak. Time passed breath by breath. Qin Feiyang, you bastard. I curse you to die a horrible death. I can't accept this. After about 100 breaths of time, the artifact spirit let out a roar. The last bit of its intelligence was finally destroyed, leaving behind only a roar that echoed in the galaxy for a long time. But it wasn't over yet. The heavenly lightning turned into a thunderous force that surged toward the fragments of the Ice Dragon's sacred sword. The thunderous force didn't dissipate until all the fragments were destroyed. The blood clouds in the sky also dissipated at this time. It's not enough to kill the artifact spirit. It still has to destroy the main body before it is willing to stop. This is really the destruction of both the body and the soul. The ancient castle exclaimed. Even a sovereign divine weapon could be destroyed. This blood oath was indeed terrifying. Qin Feiyang's face was full of excitement. The power of the blood oath was completely beyond his imagination. In the future, subduing a sovereign divine weapon was no longer a dream. Swoosh! Immediately, he turned around and looked at the Horsetail Whisk, his eyes burning with passion. This was his first goal. Stepping out of the space-time step, he rushed toward the Horsetail Whisk like a hungry wolf. Looking at Qin Feiyang's burning eyes, the Horsetail Whisk couldn't help but tremble. It turned around and fled toward the entrance of the galaxy. The Ice Dragon's sacred sword had already fallen, and now it was alone. Facing the Red Longsword, the ancient castle, and Qin Feiyang, it had no chance of winning at all. Escape? The red longsword sneered and directly attacked. If only the red longsword was there, it definitely wouldn't be able to stop the horsetail whisk. But it was different now. There were Qin Feiyang and the ancient castle. As long as the red longsword could entangle the horsetail whisk, even if only for a short while, it would be a turtle in a jar. The red longsword attacked. Although the horsetail whisk wanted to escape, in the face of a sovereign divine weapon that was not weaker than it, it definitely had to defend or counterattack. This was equivalent to holding it back. Clang. The ancient castle also surged with divine power, shattering a large part of the galaxy and rushing toward the battlefield like lightning. The ancient castle's speed was faster than Qin Feiyang's. Although Qin Feiyang's blood-red longsword was comparable to a sovereign divine weapon after activating the slaughter domain, speed had always been Qin Feiyang's weakness. Therefore, compared to the speed of a sovereign divine weapon, he was too far behind. The horsetail whisk didn't dare to fight at all. After repelling the red longsword, it immediately turned around and continued to flee. Don't even think about it. The red longsword roared and slashed again with sword chi. Why do you have to kill me? The horsetail whisk roared. Humph! The red longsword coldly snorted and ignored the horsetail whisk. Flames rushed out, turning into one after another fire dragon, roaring in the sky and carrying the power to destroy the world, pouncing on the horsetail whisk. The horsetail whisk was forced to counterattack again. In a few pauses, the ancient castle had already arrived. As if crossing through time and space, it directly blocked the horsetail whisk's escape route. After the horsetail whisk shattered the fire dragon, it saw the ancient castle in front of it and Qin Feiyang, who was also halfway there. Suddenly, its heart sank. Give up resisting. 1 against 1, the outcome is hard to predict. But now it's 1 against 3. You have no chance. The ancient castle said. The horsetail whisk was silent. You don't have to work so hard for the blood haul. After all, you're a sovereign divine weapon. Is it worth sacrificing yourself for a mere blood haul? Qin Feiyang also finally arrived. He looked at the horsetail whisk and said, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Palace have joined forces. The Blood Hall Master and the others can't even protect themselves. Even if you escape now, they can't help you. So, why don't you follow me? Trust me, you won't regret following me. The horsetail whisk was still silent. You may be afraid of the ice dragon. In fact, I'm also very afraid. But do we have to be afraid for the rest of our lives? Do we have to live under their feet forever? No, that's not what I want. I believe that a sovereign divine weapon like you definitely doesn't want to be trampled by others. So, we have to work hard and fight to surpass them, defeat them, and trample them under our feet to take back our dignity and glory. Qin Feiyang shouted. The horsetail whisk trembled slightly, as if it was moved by Qin Feiyang's courage. The Blood Hall's destruction is already destined. Even if I let you go now, you only have one path, and that is to follow the ice dragon. No one knows the ice dragon better than I do. You'll only be cannon fodder and slave if you follow him. You won't have any dignity. The Dragon God Sword and the Ice Dragon Sacred Sword are the best examples. Did you see the ice dragon care about them? No. But I'm different. Although I'm not as strong as the ice dragon, I have a clear conscience towards my companions. Think about it carefully. Who's the best choice for you? Qin Feiyang said and didn't say anything else. He silently looked at the horsetail whisk, waiting for the horsetail whisk's decision. Outside, the Blood Hall, the battle was coming to an end. The 5,000 Sovereign Realm secret guards had all fallen. They were either missing an arm or a leg, or their bodies were crippled. Their blood dyed the ground red. However, without exception, all of them had their sea of chi destroyed. Even their divine souls were severely injured. They couldn't fight anymore. The 9 deacons had also lost their ability to fight. There was a bloody hole in their lower abdomens, and blood was flowing out. They lay in the void, looking at the people from the Demon Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance with despair in their eyes. The only one who was still fighting was the Blood Hall's Hall Master. However, he was facing 2 super experts, the Demon Hall's Hall Master and the Alliance Master. He was already at the end of his road. His body was riddled with holes, and blood was spurting out from his body. Although the Demon Hall's Hall Master and the Alliance Master were injured, they were much better off than the Blood Hall's Hall Master. The Vice Alliance Master, the Hall of Famers, Elder Hua, Chu Yun, and the 10 elders of the Demon Hall stood at the side and watched coldly. They didn't interfere in the battle between the three. This was because the Demon Hall's Hall Master and the Alliance Master had ordered them not to interfere. They wanted to personally deal with the Blood Hall's Hall Master and end the grudge that had lasted for so many years. Chapter 33-43. The three figures intertwined with each other, creating a deafening rumble. Various profundities of laws collided, destroying everything in their path. Puff. The Blood Hall Master spurted blood from his mouth, dyeing the sky red. Almost every time they collided, his injuries would worsen by a bit. They've all fallen. He looked at the 9 deacons and the thousands of secret guards, his eyes filled with despair. The Blood Hall had been in the western mainland for countless years, but this was the first time they had faced such a serious situation. The most despicable thing was that the Demonic Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance were going to kill them all. He was unwilling to give up. He looked up at the galaxy and placed his hopes on the Ice Dragon's sacred sword and the horsetail whisk. He shouted, "Come and help me." However, he didn't know that the battle in the galaxy had already ended. Due to the strong aftershocks, people thought that Qin Fei Yang and the 3 sovereign divine weapons were still fighting. Facing Qin Fei Yang's slaughter zone, the ancient castle, and the Demonic Hall's sovereign divine weapons, the Ice Dragon's sacred sword and your sovereign divine weapons can't even protect themselves. Do you still hope that they can help you? The Demonic Hall Master sneered. 10 golden lotuses appeared and shone brightly like 10 golden suns, illuminating the sky. Today is the end of the Blood Hall. The Alliance Master also smiled coldly. He grabbed at the air, and the void within a radius of a few 100 million miles collapsed, turning into ice crystals and sharp blades. They filled the entire world and emitted a destructive sharpness. The Karma Law and the Space-Time Law, the 2 supreme profundities, locked onto the Blood Hall Master. Don't get carried away. You'll pay the price sooner or later. The Blood Hall Master roared. He activated the moment of time and flew away. Whoosh. However, at the same time, Elder Hua and the Vice Alliance Master activated the moment of time and stood in front of the Blood Hall Master. Get lost. The Blood Hall Master roared and threw a punch at the 2 of them. The power of laws intertwined with each other, filled with a destructive aura. Humph. Elder Hua and the Vice Alliance Master looked at each other and snorted at the same time. They threw a punch without backing down. The power of laws intertwined around their bodies, and their terrifying aura was destructive. After all, both the Vice Alliance Master and Elder Hua were not weaker than the Blood Hall Master. Moreover, the Hall Master of Blood Hall was severely injured. How could he possibly be a match for them? Faced with the combined attack of the 2, the Blood Hall Master was sent flying on the spot. His arm was crushed, and his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. It's over. The Alliance Master and the Demon Hall Master looked at each other with smiles on their faces. With a wave of their hands, the 10 golden lotuses and the ice crystal blades that filled the sky immediately charged toward the Blood Hall Master. No, the Hall Master of the Blood Hall roared helplessly, but no one present sympathized with him. In the blink of an eye, the Blood Hall Master was drowned by the 10 golden lotuses and countless ice crystal blades. His physical body was immediately riddled with holes. His chi-si had also been pierced by a few ice crystal blades, and blood was gushing out. His aura quickly dissipated, and he fell weakly to the ground. It's not hopeless yet. I beg you, please come and save us. He looked at the Milky Way with a final glimmer of hope in his eyes. Clang. Accompanied by a loud bang, a divine light swept out of the galaxy and appeared in his line of sight. I'm finally out, the Blood Hall Master murmured, and he could not help but cry. The appearance of the horsetail whisk meant that Qin Fei Yang had been defeated. At the same time, the Demon Hall Master and the others also looked up at the horsetail whisk. Why was only the horsetail whisk out? Where were Qin Feiyang and the others? Could it be that the slaughter zone, the ancient castle, and the crimson longsword combined could not defeat the horsetail whisk and the ice dragon sacred sword? They also became nervous. Although they were basically still in peak condition and the horsetail whisk looked damaged, it was still a sovereign divine weapon no matter how badly it was injured. To put it bluntly, even if the horsetail whisk was not in good condition, it could still kill them in a matter of minutes. Ha ha! The blood hall master crawled to his feet in a sorry state, and his face was extremely ferocious. He looked at the Alliance Master and the others and laughed. All of you are going to die. Despair, scream, and be afraid. The Alliance Master and the others looked at each other and gathered together. Their expressions were extremely grave. They did not expect that Qin Feiyang, the ancient castle, and the Crimson Longsword combined could not defeat the horsetail whisk and the Crimson Longsword. But it did not make sense. 3 against 2. How could they lose? Could it be that someone had appeared to help the horsetail whisk and the Crimson Longsword? The blood hall master looked up at the horsetail whisk and shouted, "Quickly kill them. Don't leave a single one alive." However, the horsetail whisk was indifferent. What's going on? The blood hall master looked at it in shock. Right now, other than me, no one can order it. Suddenly, a calm voice came from the Star River. Qin Feiyang. The blood hall master was shocked. The Alliance Master and the others were overjoyed. Before he finished speaking, a bloody figure stepped out of the Star River and landed in the line of sight of the group of people. Who else could it be but Qin Feiyang? The slaughter zone was still there, and the Crimson Longsword was emitting a monstrous killing intent. However, the ancient castle and the Crimson Longsword were nowhere to be seen. He didn't die. What's going on? The blood hall master was extremely shocked. Are you disappointed that I didn't die? Qin Feiyang took another step forward and landed in front of the blood hall master, directly slashing at him. Don't kill me! The blood hall master suddenly panicked and roared. The Crimson Longsword stopped above the blood hall master's head. Qin Feiyang looked down at him coldly and said indifferently, "Give me a reason not to kill you." The blood hall master thought for a moment, then suddenly gritted his teeth and roared, "I can serve you. I have mastered the law of time, and I have the supreme profound. As long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. Now that you mention it, you do have some value." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Yes, I promise that I will be loyal to you. If you ask me to go east, I will never go west. Just give me a chance to be loyal to you." At this moment, the blood hall master no longer had the arrogance and dignity he once had. He was like a pitiful old dog, lying in the void and begging endlessly. "Okay," Qin Feiyang nodded. The blood hall master was overjoyed. "However, you have to be controlled by the slave seal." Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a slave seal appeared. Looking at the slave seal, the blood hall master's eyes flashed coldly. Qin Feiyang noticed it immediately, and he sneered, "Even the horsetail whisk has submitted to me, and you still want to play tricks?" "What? It has submitted to Qin Feiyang?" The blood hall master looked at the horsetail whisk floating in the air with a dazed expression. The demon hall master and the others were also shocked. When they heard Qin Feiyang's words earlier, they thought so too. However, they did not dare to believe it. After all, this was a sovereign divine weapon. How could it submit to Qin Feiyang? Therefore, they thought that Qin Feiyang and the horsetail whisk had reached an agreement. In other words, it was a cooperative relationship. However, they did not expect it to submit to Qin Feiyang. How did he make a sovereign divine weapon submit to him? It was unbelievable. Qin Feiyang looked at the horsetail whisk and said with a faint smile, "Come down." The horsetail whisk fell and floated beside Qin Feiyang. Seeing that the horsetail whisk obeyed Qin Feiyang, the blood hall master had no choice but to accept this terrible fact. His heart sank into the abyss of despair. Even the sovereign divine weapon had submitted to him. With his ability, what tricks could he play? Similarly, since the sovereign divine weapon had submitted to Qin Feiyang, Would Qin Feiyang still care about him? Could he be more powerful than the sovereign divine weapon? He was already merciful enough to spare his life. If he still wanted to play tricks, wouldn't it be equivalent to a grave? All kinds of despair made him disheartened. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the slave seal immediately turned into a stream of light and entered the Blood Hall master's head. If it were any other time, he would not dare to be so careless and directly control the Blood Hall master. After all, the Blood Hall master's cultivation was there. Although his sea of qi was destroyed, the strength of his divine soul was still there. If he resisted at the critical moment, he would definitely suffer a backlash. At least he would be seriously injured, and at worst he would die. However, in the current situation, he had already expected that this person would not dare to resist. Because not only the Blood Hall master, but anyone else would be the same. Even the sovereign divine weapon had submitted to him. He would definitely be shrouded in despair, and his heart would be dead. As expected, the Blood Hall master was paralyzed in the void. His eyes were dull, and he did not even have the slightest consciousness to resist. The slave seal was successfully completed. The Blood Hall master has submitted, and so has the sovereign divine weapon. The situation of the Sky Cloud realm is about to change greatly. The Alliance Master whispered. When the Demon Hall Master heard this, a strange light flashed in her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. However, the Deputy Alliance Master, the Hall of Famers, Elder Hua's eyes were full of gratification. Qin Feiyang was the Deputy Alliance Master's personal disciple. Seeing his disciple getting better and better, he would definitely be happy. Elder Hua was even more so. Although he was not Qin Feiyang's disciple, nor were they related by blood, they were the first to know each other. Furthermore, Elder Hua had been silently helping Qin Feiyang and the others all these years. He had taken care of them a lot. It could be said that, without Elder Hua's help, Qin Feiyang and the others would not have had such a smooth journey in the Eastern continent. At the beginning, it was undeniable that Elder Hua and Qin Feiyang and the others were indeed in a mutually beneficial relationship. The enemy of an enemy was a friend. However, after slowly getting along with them, he found that these juniors were indeed good. Therefore, he gradually regarded Qin Feiyang and the others as his own juniors without any selfishness. Therefore, like the Deputy Alliance Master, he was very gratified to see Qin Feiyang's current achievements. As for the Hall of Famers, he was a person with a simple temperament and had always admired Qin Feiyang. In addition, Frenzy was his personal disciple. As the saying goes, love the house and its crow. Therefore, he also hoped to see Qin Feiyang and the others become stronger and stronger. However, Chu Yun, Shun Meng and his wife, the 10 great elders of the Demon Hall, the thoughts of these people were somewhat thought-provoking. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang. After subduing the Blood Hall Master, his gaze fell on the 9 great deacons and the more than 5,000 secret guards. Don't tell me he wants to take these people under his command too? Chu Yun, Shin Meng and his wife, and the 10 great elders of the Demon Hall were shocked when they saw this scene. If that was the case, then the rise of Qin Feiyang and the others would really be unstoppable. Chapter 33-44. At the same time, the 9 deacons and the 5,000 dark guards looked at Qin Feiyang with pale faces and trembling. At this moment, in their eyes, Qin Feiyang was like a god that they could only look up to. The power of life and death was in his hands. Now that this person was looking at them, was he going to kill them? For a moment, fear and panic swept over, drowning their bodies and minds. They were extremely nervous. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent and shouted, "The sovereign divine weapon and the Blood Hall Master have already submitted. What are you waiting for?" The group of people were stunned. What did he mean? He didn't want to kill them, but wanted them to submit as well? When they reacted, everyone immediately got up, either kneeled on the ground or in the air, and shouted in unison, "We are willing to submit. Greetings, young master." Qin Feiyang smiled. In this world, there were quite a lot of people who knew what was good for them. Then, he formed a seal with both hands, and slavery seals appeared one after another, continuously entering the top of their heads. Not a single person resisted. Putting aside the fact that the horsetail whisk, a sovereign divine weapon, was floating beside Qin Fengfiang, eyeing them covetously, just the blood-red longsword in Qin Feiyang's hand was enough to shatter their bones. Dare to resist? If they resisted, they would die. At this stage of cultivation, especially the 9 deacons, who had mastered the supreme mysteries, who would be willing to die? If there was a chance, it was better to live than to die. Besides, Qin Feiyang now had the castle and the horsetail whisk, 2 sovereign divine weapons, and the slaughter domain that was comparable to a sovereign divine weapon. Following him might not be a bad thing. It would still take some time to control thousands of people. Fortunately, there were no changes along the way. After a few hundred breaths, the control was completed. Qin Feiyang, congratulations, congratulations. The Alliance Master stepped forward and laughed. Congratulations? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The Demon Hall Master also stepped forward and said with a smile, the Blood Hall Master, the 9 deacons, Wang Changyuan, and all the Dark Guards are now under your command. This is equivalent to taking over the Western continent. Shouldn't we congratulate you? Taking over the Western continent? Qin Feiyang looked at the 2 of them in astonishment. Did these 2 think that he was going to rule the Western continent? He was not interested in this at all. The reason why he kept these people alive was to prepare for the battle with Ice Dragon and Small Beast in the future. Although he had only met 1 dragon so far, he could feel that the Ice Dragon and Small Beast had more power than this. Therefore, it was necessary to prepare in advance. As for the Blood Hall Master and the others, they weren't weak to begin with, so there was no need to spend any effort to nurture them. They were all ready-made battle prowess, so it was naturally best to keep them alive. Of course, if he couldn't use it, he wouldn't force it. However, those who should be killed still had to be killed. For example, Pei Wanli. He couldn't let Pei Wanli go just because the Blood Hall Master had submitted to him. He wasn't that generous. Qin Feiyang didn't explain anything to the Devil Hall Master and the Alliance Master. He looked at the Blood Hall Master and the 9 deacons and asked, do you know where Old Hai is hiding? Meanwhile, he secretly peeked into the minds of these people. I don't know. The 10 of them looked at each other, sighed, and shook their heads. At this point, what else could they do? They could only obey obediently. Qin Feiyang frowned. The 10 of them didn't lie, and didn't know where Old Hai was. It seemed that it wouldn't be easy to find Old Hai. Now, he could only pray that Frenzy and the White-Eyed Wolf would be able to find something. Quickly repair your Sea of Qi. There might be places where I need your help later. Qin Feiyang took out the sound transmission Godstone and sent a message to Frenzy. Buzz. Very soon, Frenzy's shadow appeared. Frenzy was slightly stunned and asked, has the battle over there ended? A complete victory. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Ha ha. Madman immediately laughed out loud and generously gave Qin Feiyang a thumbs up. What about your side? Qin Feiyang asked. I haven't found Old Hai yet. Frenzy shook his head. You haven't found him yet? Qin Feiyang frowned, and Frenzy nodded and then said, but we already know where he went. He is hiding near the Blood Hall, and we are searching for him now. Near the Blood Hall? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and immediately looked around. The Sky Cloud realm was so big that one could hide anywhere, but this person actually chose to hide near the Blood Hall. He was really treacherous. You don't have to look for him. Although he is said to be hiding near the Blood Hall, he definitely won't be around the Blood Hall. After all, the battle fluctuations are so strong. With his current state, he won't be able to withstand it. Frenzy said, that's true. Qin Feiyang nodded and curiously asked, then how did you know that he was hiding near the Blood Hall? One must know. Almost no one would have thought of doing something so contrary to the norm. We initially guessed that he might have gone to the Eastern continent. After all, the Eastern continent is the most dangerous place, but it is also the safest place. But we were lucky and actually caught a distant cousin of his. This person is called Li Chenghai. He was the one who took Old Hai away from the Blood Hall. Frenzy briefly explained the situation at that time. I see. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and gave Frenzy a thumbs up without hesitation. He smiled and said, "Well done." Not only did they find out where Old Hai went, but they also caught all the managers and disciples of the Blood Hall. It was not an exaggeration to say that this battle was a complete victory. Since the battle on your side is over, help us find him. We will surround him from the outside, and you guys will surround him from the inside. Even if he grows wings, he won't be able to escape. Frenzy laughed. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned off the sound transmission godstone. He glanced at the Blood Hall Master and the others. Taking the Yuan Hai Divine Pill to repair his Qi seemed to be too slow. With a thought, the Mermaid Princess appeared and said with a smile, "Help him repair his Qi and injuries." Okay. The Mermaid Princess nodded and activated her Battle Soul and Life Law at the same time. Life Law. The Blood Hall Master and the 9 deacons were stunned. They did not expect this person to have someone who mastered the Life Law by his side. Wait, she seems a little familiar. The Blood Hall Master was stunned. He looked at the Mermaid Princess carefully and suddenly remembered. Wasn't she Qin Feiyang's lover? Although he did not go to the mortal world and did not see the Mermaid Princess with his own eyes, he had seen the Mermaid Princess image. One was the Karma Law, one was the Life Law, and one was the Death Law. And the Wolf King was even more ridiculous. He had mastered the Death Law and the Time Law at the same time. They were really a group of monsters. With the help of the Mermaid Princess and the Primordial Sea Divine Pill that they had consumed, the group of people's sea of Qi and injuries were more or less healed in less than 5 breaths. You've worked hard. Looking at the pale Mermaid Princess, Qin Feiyang felt sorry for her. After all, there were so many people, and all of them were perfect sovereigns. Therefore, helping them repair their Qi and injuries would consume a lot of Life Law. I'm fine. The Mermaid Princess smiled. Then you go to the Black Tortoise Realm to recuperate. I still have a lot of things to deal with. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. The Mermaid Princess nodded. She was gentle, considerate, and obedient. Many people envied her. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent the Mermaid Princess to the Black Tortoise Realm. Then, he looked at the Blood Hall Master and the others and shouted, "Now, start a carpet search from the inside to the outside." Yes. The Blood Hall Master and the 9 deacons bowed and replied. But suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something. He stretched out his hand and said, "Wait." The group was about to turn and leave. Hearing this, they could not help but turn to look at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and shook his head. No need to look. We'll just wait here. Wait here. Not only the Blood Hall Master and the others, but the Demon Hall Master and the others also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Old Hai is hiding nearby. He must have sensed the battle here. When he notices that the battle here has disappeared, he will definitely come to check. How about this, Fu Whisk and you guys? Qin Feiyang looked at the Horsetail Whisk, Blood Hall's Hall Master, and the others and said, "Just stand there and reveal that kind of joy of victory. When Old C comes to check and sees your expressions, he will think that you have won. Naturally, he will take the initiative to come out and look for you." As for us, Qin Feiyang looked at the Demon Hall Master and the others and said with a smile, "Let's go to the Black Tortoise Realm and wait for this person to take the bait." Brilliant. The group of big shots shook their heads and sighed. What kind of brain did this person have? In such a short period of time, he actually came up with the best solution. If you went to search, not only would you not be able to find him, you might even alert the enemy. However, there was no loophole in waiting. Moreover, it would save time and effort. As the saying went, virtue is 1 foot tall, while the devil is 10 feet tall. This sentence was indeed reasonable. Old Hai thought that he was very smart and chose to hide near the Blood Hall. However, he did not know that there was someone smarter than him. No, Qin Feiyang was a cunning old fox. Don't play any tricks. I can see what you guys are thinking. Qin Feiyang looked at the Blood Hall Master and the others and said coldly. Then, he led the Demon Hall Master and the others and disappeared without a trace. Hall Master, the 9 deacons and the group of secret guards immediately looked at the Blood Hall Master. The Blood Hall Master glanced at them and then looked at Fu Whisk. Even if they wanted to betray him, they would need Fu Whisk's help. Otherwise, with their strength, they would not be enough to fill the gaps between Qin Feiyang's teeth. Don't look at me. I don't want to follow in the footsteps of the Ice Dragon's sacred sword, Fu Whisk said coldly. Follow in the footsteps of the Ice Dragon's sacred sword? What do you mean? The group was puzzled. Wait, they did not see the Ice Dragon's sacred sword, nor did they see the ancient castle and the Demon Hall's sovereign divine weapons. What was going on? Where were the 3 sovereign divine weapons? The Ice Dragon's sacred sword has fallen. The ancient castle and the Demon Hall's sovereign divine weapons have gone to the Black Tortoise realm to recuperate. As for how the Ice Dragon's sacred sword fell, at this point, Fu Whisk's voice could not help but tremble. It was too terrifying. This was the first time he had seen such a terrifying thing. What was even more ridiculous was that it was an oath that no one took seriously. Chapter 3345. Black Tortoise World. Tea Garden. Everyone, please take a seat. Qin Feiyang stood in front of the tea table and extended his hand with a smile. The tea table could seat 8 people. However, if they were to squeeze, a dozen people wouldn't be a problem. Wait a moment. Where are the Ice Dragon's sacred sword, the castle, and our heaven-defying divine weapons? The Demon Hall master looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Yeah, why don't I see them? The Alliance Master and the others also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, The Ice Dragon's sacred sword is fallen. Fallen. Everyone was dumbfounded. If it was someone else who said it, they wouldn't believe it. However, it was Qin Feiyang who said it, so it must be true. Another sovereign divine weapon had fallen. It was no wonder that the horsetail whisk would submit to Qin Feiyang. After witnessing the fall of the Ice Dragon's sacred sword, would it dare to not submit? Qin Feiyang smiled again and said, As for the castle and the others, they are all using their origin energy to repair their damaged bodies. I see. The Demon Hall master heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that the Demon Hall's sovereign divine weapon had betrayed them like the horsetail whisk. If it had really betrayed them, then the Demon Hall would be in the same situation as the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Their status would instantly drop by a lot. The Vice Alliance master pondered for a moment. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Feiyang, although the Blood Hall's sovereign divine weapon has submitted, you have to be careful. After all, it's a sovereign divine weapon. It's not something we can control. Master, don't worry. It won't dare to betray us even if it has 100 guts. Qin Feiyang smiled confidently. So confident? Everyone looked at him in surprise. You probably don't know that there is a kind of oath in this world. This oath is different from ordinary oaths. It will really come true. Qin Feiyang said. What? An oath that will come true? The group looked at each other. That's right. Previously, in the Star River, the Ice Dragon Holy Sword was heavily injured by us and forced to swear this oath. However, it was the same as you are now. It did not take it seriously. In the blink of an eye, it was destroyed by the heavenly lightning. In other words, its death was not because of us. Instead, it was because it violated its oath and was punished by the heavens. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. This, breaking the oath and suffering the wrath of the heavens? To the Alliance Master and the others, this was simply a fantasy story. Kid, are you sure you're not joking with us? Elder Hua frowned. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, and then a trace of ridicule flashed in his eyes. He said with a smile, Why don't you give it a try? Forget it. Forget it. This is a matter of life and death. How can I play around casually? Elder Hua was slightly stunned. He waved his hand and asked, So, the horsetail whisk also made such an oath? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and laughed. It personally witnessed the Ice Dragon Holy Sword being destroyed by the heavenly lightning. So right now, it is more reliable than anyone else. That's good. The Vice Alliance Master nodded and sat on a stone bench. He smiled and said, Then let's make some tea. Let's celebrate. Everyone looked at each other and smiled as they sat down. The Divine Python couple laid on the Alliance Master's shoulders as usual. Qin Feiyang took out a tea set and started brewing tea, but his gaze would occasionally look at the 10 great elders of the demon palace. What's wrong? The 10 great elders quickly noticed Qin Feiyang's abnormality and couldn't help but look at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said with a smile as he brewed the tea, "I want to know, which elder was secretly cooperating with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance in the past?" To put it politely, it was cooperation. To put it bluntly, it was a spy, a traitor. Cooperating with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? 9 of the elders were startled. There was actually such a thing? However, there was a middle-aged man who seemed to be panicking. At the same time, Demon Palace Lord, Elder Hua, Chu Yun, and the Vice Alliance Master all glanced at the middle-aged man, because they knew in their hearts who the spy was. Qin Feiyang glanced at the 10 great elders. When he saw the middle-aged man's abnormality, his heart was as clear as a mirror. However, he didn't say anything else. Because this was an internal matter of the Demon Palace, he didn't want to interfere. After brewing the tea, he poured it for the group of elders one by one. Then, he picked up the teacup and stood up with a smile. "Thank you for your help this time. I, Qin Feiyang, may not be a kind person, but I still know how to repay kindness. I will remember this kindness and slowly repay it in the future when I have the chance. We're all family. Why are you being so polite?" The Vice Alliance Master waved his hand. "Yes. Besides, we helped you out of selfishness. Our Demon Palace wants to borrow your hand to get rid of our old enemy, the Blood Palace. The Alliance Master of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance also wants to borrow your hand to take revenge. All in all, this is a matter of mutual benefit. It's good for everyone." Elder Hua smiled faintly. "Although that's the case, without your help these years, Senior Brother Feng Zi and I wouldn't have been so successful in the Sky Cloud realm. Especially you, Elder Hua. We'll remember every bit of help you've given us. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone." This junior uses tea in place of wine to toast you all. Qin Feiyang held the teacup with both hands and bowed to the group of people. Then, he raised his head and drank it in one gulp. The group of elders looked at each other and revealed a gratified smile. No matter how strong Qin Feiyang became, no matter how the situation of the Sky Cloud realm changed, Qin Feiyang always had a grateful heart. Unlike other young people, once they gained power, they began to get carried away. They didn't even know their own surname, let alone the kindness of others. That was a joke. It was already good enough that they didn't bite the hand that fed them. Therefore, they sincerely admired Qin Feiyang's character and conduct. Even if this time, Qin Feiyang rose because of them, they felt that it was worth it. This wasn't a joke. If the Demon Palace and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance hadn't joined forces to help, how could Qin Feiyang defeat the Blood Hall? He couldn't win at all. He could only run for his life, let alone subduing the Horsetail Whisk and the Blood Hall Master. Therefore, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that the Demon Palace and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance had made Qin Feiyang what he was. Since we've said it out loud, let's settle some things. The Demon Palace Hall Master took a sip of tea and looked at the people of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. "What's the matter?" The Alliance Master looked at him suspiciously. The Demon Palace Hall Master pointed at the middle-aged man and said, "Get up." The middle-aged man shuddered and hurriedly put down the teacup. He stood up and looked at the Demon Palace Hall Master with fear. "Aren't you curious? Why did Qin Feiyang say that someone from our Demon Palace is secretly working with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance?" The Demon Palace Hall Master looked at the other 9 elders and then pointed at the middle-aged man and said, "I'll tell you now. Our 8th elder was bribed by the Vice Alliance Master to help the Rogue Cultivator Alliance investigate the situation of our Demon Palace." "What?" The 9 elders immediately looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's eyes trembled. He knelt in front of the Demon Palace Hall Master and begged, "Palace Hall Master, I know my mistake. Don't kill me. Can you give me a chance?" The middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang and begged, "I contributed to the destruction of the Blood Hall this time. Please help me plead for mercy. I'm very grateful to you for this matter, but I really can't interfere in this matter." Qin Feiyang shook his head. The middle-aged man fell into despair when he heard this. Although the Demon Palace Hall Master was a woman, Anyone who knew her methods. She was decisive and ruthless. Especially when dealing with traitors, she would never show mercy. The Demon Palace Hall Master looked at the middle-aged man and said to the Alliance Master and the other two, "Since he likes your Rogue Cultivator Alliance, from now on, he will go to your Rogue Cultivator Alliance." What? The middle-aged man looked at the Demon Palace Hall Master in shock. Qin Feiyang, Chu Yun, Elder Hua, the 9 Elders, the Alliance Master, the Vice Alliance Master, the Hall of Famers, and Xin Meng and his wife were all stunned. They originally thought that the Demon Palace Hall Master would kill the middle-aged man in front of them. They didn't expect her to ask him to go to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Did this mean that she wouldn't pursue the matter? According to my character, you definitely won't be able to live. However, I've already seen through it. Killing you won't help. Why don't I give you a way out? The Demon Palace Hall Master sighed. Thank you, Palace Hall Master. The middle-aged man was extremely grateful. He kowtowed 3 times to the Demon Palace Hall Master. However, you have to remember that you only have 1 chance. If you miss it, no one will give you a second chance. Do you understand? The Demon Palace Hall Master said. Understood. I'll definitely remember. The middle-aged man nodded. Elder Hua shook his head and smiled. He looked at the Alliance Master and the others and said, "Now that I think about it, your Rogue Cultivator Alliance has profited. It wasn't easy for our Demon Palace to nurture an elder, but you guys benefited." Profited? The Alliance Master smiled disapprovingly. He looked at the middle-aged man and shook his head. To be honest, I don't dare to accept someone who can be bribed so easily. Hearing this, the middle-aged man panicked again. He could accept being expelled from the Demon Palace. After all, he had made a mistake. However, if the Rogue Cultivator Alliance didn't accept him, where could he go in the future? The Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers were also silent. Although the Vice Alliance Master was very familiar with the middle-aged man, that was only using their relationship. If the middle-aged man really entered the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, he would also panic. This was because he had interacted with the middle-aged man the most and knew what kind of person he was. Greedy, selfish, and without any loyalty. If such a person really entered the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, it might not be a good thing. Oldie, what do you mean? When the middle-aged man saw this, he couldn't help but glare at the Vice Alliance Master and shouted, "If it weren't for your instigation, would I have cooperated with you?" The Vice Alliance Master glanced at him and still didn't say anything. Suddenly, his eyes flashed and he pointed at Qin Feiyang, who was drinking tea. He looked at the middle-aged man and said, "If you want our Rogue Cultivator Alliance to accept you, you have to sign an enslavement seal with my disciple." What? The middle-aged man's body stiffened. Of course, if you don't want to, we won't force you. Moreover, for the sake of our past relationship, we won't do anything to you. You can leave now, the Vice Alliance Master said. The middle-aged man clenched his hands and roared, "Okay, I'll leave. I don't believe that without you, I can't find a place to stand in the Sky Cloud realm." At his level of cultivation, who would be willing to be controlled by others and put their lives in the hands of others? No one was willing, just like the Blood Hall Master and the others. If it weren't for the situation, would they sign an enslavement seal with Qin Feiyang? It would never happen. Seeking recommendation votes. Chapter 3346. However, no one asked him to stay. The Devil Palace and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance could not trust the 8th Elder. Naturally, Qin Feiyang would not trust him either. If such a person stayed by his side, he would have to be on guard at all times. Of course, if this person was willing to sign the slave seal, it would be a different story. However, he was not willing. There was no other way. An uncontrollable person who was at the perfection sovereign realm and had mastered a supreme profound. If he stayed in the Black Tortoise world, who knew what he would do? In short, an uncontrollable person was a hidden danger. In this world, no one would be willing to keep a hidden danger by their side. Facing the attitude of Qin Feiyang and the others, the 8th Elder became angrier and angrier. Especially towards the Vice Alliance Master, his heart was filled with hatred. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, If this place does not keep people, there will be a place to keep people. Send me out. Don't be anxious. When we find Old Hai, I will send you out. Qin Feiyang smiled. What? Are you afraid that I will inform Old Hai? The eighth elder raised his eyebrows. That's not what I mean. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. However, before he could finish, the eighth elder was furious and roared. Then what do you mean? Even if he wanted to inform Old Hai, he could not contact him. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows slightly. Was this person crazy? Why was he yelling at him? You were the one who let down the Devil Palace. Even if no one trusted you now, you only have yourself to blame. However, it felt like he was the biggest victim. The mistake was right in front of him. Not only did he not know how to reflect, he even acted like he was wronged. He really could not keep such a person by his side. Otherwise, he would sell him out sooner or later. Seeing a trace of displeasure on Qin Feiyang's face, the eighth elder finally realized that something was wrong. This was Qin Feiyang's black tortoise world. If he angered Qin Feiyang, he would not be able to escape even if he went to heaven or hell. Moreover, whether it was the Devil Palace or the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, they would all help Qin Feiyang. Acting presumptuously here was equivalent to courting death. Sorry, I lost my composure. He quickly lowered his head and apologized to Qin Feiyang. I'm fine. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, You can sit down and drink some tea. After we find Old Hai, I'll send you out. All right. What else could the eighth elder do? He could only nod in agreement. If this continued, there was no need for Qin Feiyang to make a move. Given the Demon Royal Hall's character, the Demon Royal Hall would kill him. As a person, one must know how to be tactful and patient. After the eighth elder calmed down, the Demon Royal Hall's Hall Master took a sip of tea and glanced at the Alliance Chief and the others. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Right now, we are not considered outsiders. There are some things that I will be frank with you. Please speak, Qin Feiyang said. The Demon Hall Master asked, How do you plan to deal with the aftermath? Aftermath? Qin Feiyang was stunned. What was there to deal with? Suddenly, he revealed a look of understanding and looked at the Demon Hall Master. He asked, Are you talking about the Western continent? Yes. Although the Blood Hall has collapsed, the Blood Hall's Hall Master, the 9 deacons, Wang Changyuan, and all the secret guards have followed you. Moreover, all the managers and disciples of the Blood Hall are now under the control of the madman. So in a sense, the Blood Hall has not really disappeared. Logically speaking, you can take over the Blood Hall and rule the Western continent. However, I don't know if you have this intention or not. The Demon Hall's Hall Master looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. After hearing the Demon Hall's Hall Master's words, the others also looked at Qin Feiyang. Now, any decision of Qin Feiyang could directly affect the situation of the Sky Cloud realm. Qin Feiyang looked at the group of people, took a sip of tea, and shook his head. Since we are all on the same side, then I will tell you the truth. I have never been interested in ruling. My goal is only Ice Dragon and the others. Hearing this, the Demon Hall Master and the Alliance Master heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Ice Dragon and the others? Besides Ice Dragon, who else is there? The Vice Alliance Master was puzzled. There is an existence even stronger than Ice Dragon. I feel that even Ice Dragon is like a small follower in front of it, Qin Feiyang said. What? The group of people was shocked. They had all seen Ice Dragon on White Crane Island. Its strength could be called invincible, but they did not expect that there was an existence even stronger than Ice Dragon. And Ice Dragon was only playing the role of a small follower. This was too inconceivable. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and condensed the shadow of the small beast. He asked, This is it. Have you seen it before? The group of people looked at the small beast and shook their heads. They had no impression of it at all. It seems that even experts of your level are not qualified to come into contact with it. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. How strong is it exactly? Elder Hua frowned. I can't be sure how strong it is, but I feel that it is omnipotent. There is one more thing that can prove its strength. When Qin Feiyang said this, his eyes narrowed slightly. What is it? Everyone was curious. It is the companion of the god of creation, and I heard from a few heaven-defying artifacts that it can swallow a great world in one gulp. Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice. It can't be. The group of people was shocked. The companion of the god of creation? And it can swallow a great world in one gulp? What kind of joke was this? There was such a powerful existence in this world? It was too unbelievable. Especially the god of creation. Did the god of creation really exist in this world? The deputy leader frowned and said, since it is so powerful, why did you provoke it? Isn't it better to live a normal life with your family and friends? Master, do you think I don't want to live a normal life? I didn't provoke it. It was them who repeatedly came to deal with me. Once upon a time, I had two divine weapons. One was the ancient castle, and the other was a dagger. I named it Pale Snow. However, that little beast, without any reason at all, directly snatched Sangshu from my hands. Furthermore, it sealed my other two fighting souls. Not to mention these two fighting souls, the ancient castle was sealed by it twice. Each time, I had to pay a great price to break the seal. Qin Feiyong sighed. You still have war souls? The deputy leader was surprised. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. Elder Hua asked, if you can be sealed by that small beast, then your two war souls must be extraordinary. I can't say for sure. In the past, I felt that these two war souls were not powerful, but every time I encountered the ice dragon, these two war souls played a crucial role. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Crucial role? The group of people was suspicious. Anyway, the power they unleashed was not inferior to the ice dragon. Qin Feiyong said, not inferior to the ice dragon? The group of people looked at each other. How powerful were these two war souls? They had always thought that the slaughter zone was Qin Feiyong's strongest move. Now, they knew that his real trump card was the two war souls that they had never seen before. They were ridiculously powerful. It was no wonder that they were sealed by the small beast. The deputy leader asked, so, you want to take back Changshui and break the seal of the war souls? That's right. They want to suppress me, but I won't let them have their way. Sooner or later, I will trample all of them under my feet. A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyong's eyes. The deputy leader looked at Qin Feiyong silently. He did not expect that this disciple had so many things on his shoulders. He smiled and said, go ahead and do it. Although I may not be able to help you, I will always support you. Thank you, Master. Qin Feiyong smiled gratefully. What about Lunatic? The Master of the Hall of the Exalted looked at Qin Feiyong curiously and asked, does this little madman also have an unusual origin? The others were also curious. Lunatic's performance was not much worse than Qin Feiyong's. Senior brother. To be honest, I don't know his origin. Even he doesn't know his own background. However, I have discussed it with a friend. My friend is also very strong. He is the guardian of the lower realm and has a direct relationship with Ice Dragon and Small Beast. According to his investigation, Senior Brother Lunatic is most likely the reincarnation of a peerless powerhouse. Moreover, this powerhouse's strength is not much weaker than Ice Dragon. Moreover, Senior Brother Lunatic has a divine artifact called the Blood Demon Tower. According to my friend's investigation, this divine artifact is divided into several parts. If gathered together, it should be a sovereign-level divine artifact. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. The friend he was talking about was naturally the guardian of the third floor of the miracle, the Fire Python. Hearing this secret, the group of big shots was once again shocked. The reincarnation of a peerless powerhouse and a disintegrated sovereign-level divine artifact. These two little guys are indeed monsters. In fact, this is the reason why I dragged Senior Brother Lunatic to the Sky Cloud realm. Because I feel that Senior Brother Lunatic's background should be related to Ice Dragon. Qin Feiyong said. The Hall of Famers said in surprise, hearing what you said. This old man also picked up a big bargain? You can't say that. Even if Senior Brother Lunatic is the reincarnation of a great powerhouse, he still needs time to grow. I will have to ask you to take care of him, Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Hearing this, The group of giants showed a look of admiration for Qin Feiyang. If it was any other young man with such achievements and background, they would have already become arrogant. However, Qin Feiyang had always been humble and polite, without the slightest trace of arrogance. Such a young man was a real piece of jade. All right. The Demon Hall Master shook his head and looked at Elder Hua and the others. Let's not ask about the two of them. The more we hear, the more shocked we will be. Makes sense. Everyone nodded. Even though they were all big shots in the Sky Cloud realm, the things they heard from Qin Feiyang's mouth were completely beyond their scope of understanding. It was fine if they didn't know, but now that they knew, the pressure was even greater. Actually, you don't have to think too much. When the time comes, even if you keep a distance from me and Senior Brother Lunatic, we won't complain. After all, Ice Dragon and Small Beast are indeed very strong. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Your disciple is too understanding. The Alliance Master looked at the Vice Alliance Master with eyes full of envy. How could this old man be so lucky to pick up such an outstanding disciple? The Vice Alliance leader laughed heartily. He didn't even try to hide the smug look on his face. Chapter 33:47. Look at how proud you are. The Alliance Master shook his head in disdain. If you're jealous, just say it. Don't beat around the bush. The Vice Alliance Master chuckled. Jealous? Nope. Anyway, your disciple is also a member of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Since he's from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, he's naturally my disciple. The Alliance Master said calmly. There's something wrong with your words. Go and ask around. Who doesn't know that Qin Feiyang and Madman Emo are disciples of my Demon Hall? The Demon Hall Master interjected. That's just an ordinary disciple. The Alliance Master smiled faintly. Ordinary disciple? Are you kidding? Do ordinary disciples have the right to participate in the exchange? The Demon Hall Master sneered. At most, they're core disciples. Can they be compared to personal disciples? Look at Qin Feiyang and Little Crazy. One is the personal disciple of our Vice Alliance Master, and the other is the personal disciple of our Hall of Famers. In fact, we're family. The Alliance Master said. You. The Demon Hall Master was furious. I'm telling the truth. The Alliance Master smiled proudly. After being suppressed by the Demon Hall for so many years, he finally got back some ground. Cough, cough. Elder Hua coughed dryly and said, There's nothing to argue about. We're all on the same side now. What do you mean by all on the same side? Elder Hua, don't side with outsiders. Although we're temporarily cooperating, we still have a grudge with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. We have to settle it sooner or later. The Demon Hall Master said angrily. Yes, yes, yes. Elder Hua nodded and smiled apologetically. Looking at Qin Feiyang, he quickly changed the topic and asked, Should we inform Little Madman that we're waiting here? No need. We'll contact them when Old Hai appears. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Then, with a wave of his hand, an image quickly appeared. Next, the group of people drank tea while paying attention to the situation outside. Outside, the Blood Hall Master and the others had completely given up. Even the horsetail Whisk didn't dare to resist. What could they do? Perhaps this was the best ending for them. Although they had lost their freedom, at least they were alive. The battle gradually calmed down. At the same time, in the north of the Blood Hall, there was a black figure hiding under an ancient tree at the peak of a giant mountain, looking in the direction of the Blood Hall. The fluctuations have subsided. Is the battle over? This person was Old Hai. At this moment, he was still in his soul form, and there was a trace of hesitation in his eyes. If the battle really ended, would the Blood Hall win, or would Qin Feiyang's side win? He pondered for a moment. He retracted his aura and disappeared into the mountain below like a ghost, heading for the Blood Palace. He was very careful and vigilant. However, he did not know that the moment he took this step, he was already destined to be a turtle in a jar. Time trickled by. About half an hour later, Old Hai finally reached the edge of the Nine-Dragon Mountain range. Along the way, he paid 120% attention to his surroundings. His ears were alert, and his eyes were alert. Whenever there was any movement, he would stop to check. This seems to be the aura of the hall masters and the others. He hid in a broken ravine and raised his head to look at the sky above the blood hall. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes, but it soon turned into joy. That's right. This is the aura of the hall masters and the others, and the aura of the horsetail whisk. However, he was still very vigilant. He slowly sneaked over. When he saw the blood hall masters and the others with his own eyes, he confirmed it again and again. Because the blood hall masters and the others could be impersonated, but the horsetail whisk, a sovereign divine weapon, could not be impersonated. Hall masters, with a shout, he flew toward the blood hall's hall master and the others. Old High. When the blood hall masters and the others heard Old High's voice, they immediately turned around. When they saw Old High flying over, the blood hall masters instinctively wanted to ask him to leave. However, when they thought of the slave seal, the horsetail whisk that had submitted to Qin Feiyang, and the possibility that Qin Feiyang was watching the situation outside in the Black Tortoise realm, all the thoughts in their hearts disappeared and turned into a silent sigh. Hall masters, did we win? Old High flew to the front of the blood hall masters and the others. He glanced at the 9 deacons and the group of dark guards and asked with a face full of joy. We? The blood hall masters pondered for a while and shook his head. Why are you sighing? Old High was suspicious. You shouldn't have come back. The blood hall masters sighed. What do you mean? Old High was puzzled. I mean, you're walking into a trap by coming back. Suddenly, a faint voice sounded. This voice, Old High's eyes suddenly trembled. He turned his head and scanned the void around him. He saw the group of people appear out of thin air behind him. Qin Feiyang, Alliance Master, Demon Hall Masters. Old High was stunned. What was going on? The Blood Hall Master sighed and said, There's nothing to be embarrassed about now. We lost. What? Old High's eyes trembled as he looked at the Blood Hall Masters in shock. He seemed to be asking why they were still alive since they had lost. We submitted to Qin Feiyang. One of the deacons sighed. Submitted to Qin Feiyang? Old High's eyes were filled with disbelief when he heard this. He roared, Are you kidding me? You actually submitted to Qin Feiyang? Even the sovereign divine weapon submitted. What can we do? The Blood Hall Masters were also angry. Old High's body trembled. He pointed at the horsetail whisk and asked, You said it also submitted? That's right. The Ice Dragon's sacred sword has fallen. It also submitted. Including the sovereign divine weapon of the Demon Hall, Qin Feiyang and the others have 3 sovereign divine weapons. There's also the slaughter domain. If we don't submit, will we still have a way to live? I know, this is a very embarrassing thing, but we have no choice. Not only us, but even the disciples and managers of our blood hall have fallen into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. We have completely lost. The blood hall masters sighed sadly as if they had aged dozens of years in an instant. The 9 deacons and the group of secret guards also lowered their heads, their faces filled with helplessness and sadness. The blood hall that had stood for countless years had fallen. It can't be. I don't believe it. This must be an illusion. Tell me? You're joking with me. Old High swept his gaze over Qin Feiyang and the others. He grabbed the clothes of the blood hall's hall master and roared hysterically. Accept reality. The blood hall masters patted Old High's shoulder and sighed. No. Old High roared. He would never be able to accept this reality. While Old High and the blood hall masters were talking, Qin Feiyang took out the divine sound transmission stone and spoke to Madman. Madman was pleasantly surprised when he received the news. He immediately informed the others to gather at the blood hall. This was because he had established a contract with everyone before the operation. After putting away the divine sound transmission stone, Qin Feiyang looked at Old High and said indifferently, You have to accept it even if you don't want to. However, you're quite smart. You didn't go anywhere and hid near the blood hall. If senior brother Madman didn't capture your cousin Li Qinghai, we wouldn't have been able to find you so quickly. Li Qinghai. Killing intent surged in Old High's eyes as he roared, Bastard! I'm going to kill you. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, You'd better think about how to save your old life. The Blood Hall masters were shocked and hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Qin Feiyang, do you think you can call the young master's name directly? At this moment, along with a cold shout, a space-time tunnel appeared. Madman, White-Eyed Wolf, and Wang Changyuan ran out. The three of them and Snowflake were walking together. Wang Changyuan followed Madman and White-Eyed Wolf. His purpose was naturally to show off and get close to them so that he could unlock all his potential as soon as possible. At this moment, it was Wang Changyuan who shouted coldly. Rushing to Qin Feiyang's side, Wang Changyuan waited for the Blood Hall masters and said, Since you've already surrendered, then you should act like you're surrendering. A cold light flashed in the Blood Hall master's eyes. Seeing this, Wang Changyuan's pupil shrank slightly. To be honest, facing the Blood Hall masters, he was still quite afraid. However, when he thought of Qin Feiyang as his backer, he became more confident and said, What? Do you think you're a distinguished guest invited by the young master? The Blood Hall masters clenched his hands. Wang Changyuan used to be his confidant. Wang Changyuan could have his current cultivation and status because of him. But now, he was acting like a dog relying on its master's power and shouting at him. How could he have been so blind to cultivate this villain? However, Qin Feiyang was on the side, so he didn't dare to flare up. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Young master, although Old Hai is wrong, he's not weak. Keeping him alive will definitely be beneficial to you. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and glanced at the White-Eyed Wolf, saying, It's not up to me whether to keep him alive or not. It's up to the White-Eyed Wolf. The Blood Hall masters immediately looked at the White-Eyed Wolf. They didn't know if they didn't look, but they were shocked when they saw it. At this moment, the White-Eyed Wolf was staring at Old Hai with green eyes. Even his saliva was about to flow out, as if he was staring at a delicious cake. What's going on? Why is he showing such a terrifying look? Old Hai himself also felt a great sense of crisis from the White-Eyed Wolf's eyes. The madman chuckled and asked, Brother Wolf, can I plunder without a physical body? As long as there's a wisp of soul left. The White-Eyed Wolf licked his lips. Then what are you hesitating for? The madman bared his teeth. The White-Eyed Wolf said hesitantly, I'm thinking, should I fry him or braise him first? What the hell? The madman was stunned. The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth couldn't help but twitch. The other party had already fallen to this point, and he still wanted to scare others? How could he be so wicked? Hearing this, Old Hai's scalp went numb. Fry? Braise? Did he think he was dog meat? How infuriating. However, there was only fear in his heart. Old Wang, hold him down. The White-Eyed Wolf grinned. Wang Changyuan immediately released the Law of Thunder and suppressed Old Hai. Old Hai wanted to struggle, but in his current state, could he break free? Obviously not. Moreover, Wang Changyuan was not the only one beside him. There were also the Demon Hall Masters and the others, and even the Horsetail Whisk, a ruler's divine weapon. How could he escape from so many powerhouses in his soul form? His fate was already sealed. Chapter 33:48. Roar. Accompanied by an earth-shattering roar, a golden beast shadow appeared. Elder Hua and the others knew what the White-Eyed Wolf was going to do as soon as they saw the golden beast shadow. After the battle on White Crane Island, they were also present when Frenzy told Qin Feiyang about the White-Eyed Wolf's third ability. Hence, they knew about the ability of the White-Eyed Wolf's third ability. However, the 10 Great Elders, the Alliance leader, Shinmang and his wife, the Blood Hall Master, and the others knew nothing about it. They looked at the White-Eyed Wolf with confusion in their eyes. However, the threat that the Golden Beast Shadow gave them was extremely strong. Moreover, it was a threat from the power of law. What are you doing? Elder Hai roared as he stared at the White-Eyed Wolf with hatred. Shut up! Wang Changyuan shouted coldly. He only had one thought now, and that was to perform well. Even if the Heavenly Emperor came down, he would not be able to stop his enthusiasm. Deprive. The White-Eyed Wolf roared, and golden light instantly drowned Elder Hai's divine soul. Elder Hai immediately realized that something was wrong because he could clearly feel that his own power of law was leaving him. After a few breaths, a crystal-like power of law swept out from Elder Hai's divine soul. Although Elder Hai did not have a physical body and could not activate the power of law, he could clearly feel that he had lost his power of law. Bastard! Give me back my power of law! He anxiously roared at the white-eyed wolf. Give it back to you? The white-eyed wolf looked at him with disdain, as if he was looking at an idiot. He then looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Send me to the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and the white-eyed wolf immediately disappeared. A shadow guard was puzzled and asked, What does Elder Hai mean by giving me back my power of law? I don't know either. The shadow guard next to him shook his head. During this time, many people arrived in the sky above the Blood Hall. These people were the 57 shadow guards and the Blood Hall's managers. Looking at this scene, the group of people was extremely surprised. Now that we're not strangers anymore, I might as well tell you. The white-eyed wolf possesses an innate ability that can strip away the power of laws, and it can even fuse with itself. Qin Feiyong glanced at the Blood Hall master and the others and said, What? Deprive the law? Fuse with me? There's actually such an innate ability in this world? Everyone present was flabbergasted. Wasn't this too perverted? Madman cackled. Brother Wolf's mastery of the law of death and the law of time is actually the law of death and the law of time that he plundered from the Grand Deacon and the Dark Guard commander. I see. I knew it was impossible for someone to have such heaven-defying talent to comprehend the ultimate profundities of two supreme laws at the initial stage of the ruler realm, but this innate divine ability is too terrifying. Everyone was shocked to the extreme, and their hearts were filled with panic. They were deeply afraid that they would be targeted by the white-eyed wolf. Don't worry. Other than ultimate laws, Brother Wolf doesn't care about anything else at all, Madman said indifferently. Hearing this, many people breathed a sigh of relief. However, the Alliance Master and the Blood Hall Master were somewhat unable to remain calm, because one of them had mastered the law of time, while the other had mastered the law of time. Who knew if they would become the target of the white-eyed wolf? Are you afraid? Madman noticed the Blood Hall Master's expression and laughed mockingly. The Blood Hall Master's pupils constricted. The strongest law was what they relied on. Once they lost it, they would have nothing left. It was more painful than death. Don't be so nervous. Brother Wolf already has the law of time. Your law of time is useless to him. Madman waved his hand. Useless? In other words, he can no longer fuse with the same law? The Blood Hall Master was stunned and asked. Yes. Madman nodded. That's good. The Blood Hall Master heaved a long sigh of relief. The Alliance Master also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. But, Madman spoke again. But what? The Blood Hall Master hurriedly asked, his heart in his throat again. Although he can't fuse with the same law, he can still deprive it. Once it's deprived, you will be like Old Dog Hai, forever losing the law of time. Madman sneered. The Blood Hall Master's heart skipped a beat. This was obviously a warning to him. Don't try anything funny with me. Otherwise, when the white-eyed wolf deprives you of your law of time, you will live a life of suffering. I have lived for so many years, but this is the first time I have seen such a talent. It's really like the old saying, the world is big, and there are all kinds of strange things. The Alliance Master shook his head and sighed. Yes, this wolf cub is more of a threat than Qin Feiyong and Little Madman. The Shun Meng couple on his shoulder also shook their heads and sighed. These guys were really one more perverted than the other. Wang Changyuan looked at Qin Feiyong, pointed at Old Hai, and asked, Young Master, what about him? Qin Feiyong glanced at Old Hai and said indifferently, he has no value anymore. Find out where the Blood Hall's resources are. Then kill him. Wang Changyuan nodded and sent his divine sense to Old Hai. Soon, he found a spatial divine object in Old Hai's divine soul. This spatial divine object was wrapped in Old Hai's divine soul. It was like a speck of dust and couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Wang Changyuan raised his arm and grabbed the spatial divine object. Then, the law of thunder fell with a loud bang. Old Hai's divine soul was annihilated on the spot with a miserable scream of despair. As soon as Old Hai died, the spatial divine object in Wang Changyuan's hand also appeared. It was a palm-sized stone pagoda. Wang Changyuan respectfully handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang took it in his hand and turned to look at the Demon Hall Master and Alliance Master. He said with a smile, "Since we have joined forces to destroy the Blood Hall, how about we split the Blood Hall's resources equally? If you want to give us the Blood Hall's sovereign divine weapon, we will definitely take it without hesitation. However, our Demon Hall doesn't lack these resources. You can keep them." The Demon Hall Master said indifferently, "We don't need them either." Alliance Master waved his hand. "Why not? These are the Blood Hall's resources. Our Rogue Cultivator Alliance isn't as rich as the Demon Hall. For us, these resources are very useful." Shen Meng and his wife thought to themselves, "We can't hurt our relationship because of these resources." Alliance Master transmitted his voice, but didn't he take the initiative to ask for an equal share? Shen Meng and his wife were puzzled. Since he proposed it, you want an equal share? What if he's just testing us? Besides, the Demon Hall doesn't want it. If we want it, won't it make us look inferior to them? Moreover, they are the Vice Alliance Master and the personal disciples of the Hall of Famers. Why do we have to be so calculative? Alliance Master transmitted his voice. All right. Shen Meng and his wife looked at each other and responded helplessly. All right then. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and didn't argue. He kept the stone pagoda and looked at the sky. What are you looking at? Frenzy was suspicious. I'm thinking, why hasn't the ice dragon appeared yet? According to its previous behavior, shouldn't it come out halfway to stop us? Qin Feiyang frowned, puzzled. It probably thinks that even if it comes, it's meaningless, so it's too lazy to make this trip. Frenzy sneered. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at the Blood Hall Master. Do you know where the ice dragon is? The Blood Hall Master shook his head. Then have you seen them? Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the phantoms of Long Zun, Prince Dragons, and Princess Dragons appeared. The Blood Hall Master sized them up and shook his head. I haven't seen them either. Strange. Frenzy frowned and looked at Qin Feiyang, asking, could it be that they aren't in the Sky Cloud realm? I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head and condensed a fiery red beast phantom. It was the fire dragon from Miracle. He asked, then have you seen it? Although the fire dragon looked similar, the fire dragon from Miracle had a characteristic that other fire dragons didn't have. That was the blood mark between its eyebrows. Not yet. The Blood Hall Master shook his head again. Young Master, I've seen it. Suddenly, Wang Changyuan spoke. Wang Changyuan stared at the blood mark between Elder Hua's eyebrows, his eyes full of surprise. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy immediately looked at him. I remember that more than 100 years ago, I entered the Een Demon Land to comprehend the Supreme Profound. When I carefully entered the deepest part, I suddenly saw a fire dragon. Originally, I wanted to subdue it and make it my mount, but after I made my move, I found something extremely strange. Wang Changyuan was shocked. Something strange? The Demon Hall Master and the others looked at each other and couldn't help but look at Wang Changyuan in confusion. Wang Changyuan grasped the supreme profound of the Law of Thunder and was extremely strong. If he felt something strange, it definitely wasn't simple. Wang Changyuan said, although this fire dragon's cultivation isn't that high, it's extremely strong. Even I can't kill it, as if it has an immortal body. Immortal body? The group of giants frowned. Yes. Wang Changyuan nodded. But Qin Feiyang and Frenzy heard this and their spirits were lifted. That's right. The fire dragon with the blood mark was equivalent to having an immortal body. That must be it. Qin Feiyang asked, then is it still in the Een Demon Land? I don't know about that. At that time, I couldn't kill it and it couldn't do anything to me. Then, it escaped. Later, I searched many places but couldn't find it. Wang Changyuan shook his head. That means it might not be in the Een Demon Land now? Frenzy raised his eyebrows. It might be, but it might not be. Wang Changyuan said. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath. He looked at the madman and said, It doesn't matter if it's still in the Een Devil Land or not. We have to make a trip there. After all, this is the only clue. Frenzy nodded. The vice leader asked, "Is this fire dragon your friend?" "No. It's our enemy, a life and death enemy, and it's backed by Ice Dragon and Small Beast," Qin Feiyong said solemnly. "What?" The group of giants' expressions changed. It was actually a subordinate of Ice Dragon and Small Beast. Wait. Frenzy suddenly looked at Wang Changyuan and asked, "You just said that you went to the Een Demon Land to comprehend the Supreme Profound. What's the situation?" Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned. Wang Changyuan did seem to have said this before. Didn't he say that the Een Demon Land was one of the 4 forbidden areas of the Sky Cloud Realm and was extremely dangerous? Why did he go there to comprehend the Supreme Profound? Chapter 3349. You don't know? Wang Changyuan looked at the two suspiciously. Qin Feiyong and Madman were stunned and asked, "What should we know?" Wang Changyuan was also stunned and turned to look at the vice leader and the Hall of Famers. The vice leader said, "Their talent is good, so there is no need for them to risk their lives in the forbidden areas. So we didn't tell them the specific situation of the forbidden areas." "I see." Wang Changyuan nodded. "What is the specific situation?" Qin Feiyong and Madman were even more confused. "It's like this. Although the 4 forbidden areas of the Sky Cloud Realm are very dangerous, they also contain great fortunes. For example, divine weapons, divine arts, pills, power of laws, and profound mysteries. In short, there are certain opportunities in the 4 forbidden areas that can allow you to comprehend the power of laws and even the creation of supreme profound mysteries. So in our Sky Cloud Realm, even if many perfect rulers know that the 4 forbidden areas are very dangerous, they still want to try their luck. However, these things are also secrets in the Sky Cloud Realm. Before reaching the perfect ruler realm, no one will tell them." The vice leader smiled slightly. Creation of supreme, profound mysteries. Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other. They didn't tell them such an important thing. If they had been told earlier, they would have already run to the 4 forbidden areas. "Your cultivation is too weak, and with your talent, there is no need for you to take risks, so we didn't tell you. But now it seems that it is impossible to stop you." The Hall of Famers shook his head and smiled bitterly. The two's attitude was already very firm. In order to find the fire dragon, they had to go to the Een Demon Land. Madman smiled cruelly. "Old man, it is good to know that you are doing this for us, but we are such people. We won't go to places that are not dangerous." The Hall of Famers smiled helplessly. "Did I get into trouble?" Wang Changyuan looked at the vice leader and the Hall of Famers, then looked at Qin Feiyong and Madman and muttered, "You just found out?" The vice leader and the Hall of Famers glared at him. Why did he mention the fire dragon for no reason? No one would think he was mute if he didn't open his mouth. Wang Changyuan smiled embarrassedly. "I didn't get into trouble, don't worry. On the contrary, I am very satisfied with your performance today." Madman patted Wang Changyuan's shoulder and laughed. Indeed, from the beginning until now, Wang Changyuan had been working very hard. Although it was somewhat deliberate, his efforts could not be denied. If he didn't recognize Li Qinghai, Madman wouldn't know where Old assessed. If he hadn't suppressed the upper echelons of the Blood Hall and those secret guards, things wouldn't have gone so smoothly. In short, this time, Wang Changyuan's contribution was not small. "As long as you are." This Madman teat tessest, Madman raised his head and laughed. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Old Qin, since it's settled, then let's kill our way to the Een Devil Land." "So fast? We just went through such a tough battle. Let's rest first. Besides, the mess in the Western continent is still waiting for you to clean it up," the vice leader hurriedly said. In fact, he really didn't want Qin Feiyong and Madman to go to the Een Demons. "We don't know how to clean up this mess." Madman shook his head. "If you don't clean it up, who will?" The Hall of Famers frowned. Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other, then at the vice leader and the Hall of Famers at the same time. "Of course it's you guys." "Us?" The two of them were stunned. The Alliance leader and the Divine Python couple were also suspicious. What did they mean by letting the Vice leader and the Hall of Famers clean it up? Actually, Old Sheen and I have already discussed this in private before the battle. If we can successfully destroy the Blood Hall this time, the Western continent will be handed over to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance to rule, Madman said. What? Handed over to us? The Alliance leader and the Divine Python couple looked at each other. This was too sudden. They weren't mentally prepared at all. At the same time, the Demon Hall Master, Chu Yun, and the elders of the Demon Hall looked at each other and raised their eyebrows. The Western continent was a huge cake, and they were giving it all to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance just like that? What about the Demon Hall? They had put in so much effort but didn't get anything? Qin Feiyang noticed the strange behavior of the Demon Royal Hall's Hall Master and the others. He smiled and said, "Don't be anxious. Actually, we are not doing this for the sake of the Loose Cultivator Alliance. We are also doing this for the Demon Royal Halls." Tell me about it. The Demon Hall Master said, "If I hand the Western continent to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, then the Rogue Cultivator Alliance naturally can't continue to stay in the Eastern continent. In other words, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance will have to withdraw from the Eastern continent. After the Rogue Cultivator Alliance withdraws, won't your Demon Hall be able to dominate the Eastern continent? This way, you won't have to fight for resources and territory like before. It'll save you a lot of trouble and effort. Isn't that great?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Hearing this, the leaders of the Demon Hall looked at each other. It did seem to make sense. Once the Rogue Cultivator Alliance left, they wouldn't have to fight with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance anymore. It would indeed save them a lot of trouble and trouble. Of course, compared to the entire continent that the Rogue Cultivator Alliance obtained, your Demon Hall didn't get much. Therefore, I've discussed with Senior Brother Feng Zi and will agree to a promise. No matter what you want us to do, as long as it doesn't violate morality and ethics, we'll agree to it, and this promise will be effective forever," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. A promise. The Demon Hall Master and the others looked at each other and couldn't help but ponder. Hall Master, Xiao Yun, I think this is feasible. Elder Hua was the first to react. What do you think? The Demon Hall Master thought to himself. You've all seen the foundation of Qin Feiyang and Feng Zi. They have two sovereign divine weapons, Slaughter Domain, and now the Blood Hall Master and his subordinates. Let's not talk about the future. Just now, they're enough to dominate the Sky Cloud realm. Therefore, we can't just look at their individual cultivation base. If we just look at their individual cultivation base, then their promise is indeed worthless. However, if we look at the overall situation, then this promise of theirs has an extraordinary value, especially in the future when they fully mature. Then their promise can directly affect the future of our Demon Hall. Therefore, in the long run, this deal is definitely worth it. Besides, do you really think it's a good thing to take over the Western continent? What if? I'm just saying what if. If the Ice Dragon comes to take revenge, then the Western continent will definitely suffer a calamity. Therefore, to avoid unnecessary trouble, we should just obediently guard the Eastern continent. Elder Hua sent a voice transmission, clearly analyzing the pros and cons that make sense. The Demon Hall Master muttered. Chu Yun also agreed. All right then, let's do that. The Demon Hall Master nodded in the end. He looked at Qin Feiyang and Feng Zi and said with a smile, "Then you have to remember well. Don't go back on your words when we come to find you." How is that possible? Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He cupped his hands and said sincerely, "Thank you. Also, we have an additional promise. Whether it is now or in the future, we will be disciples of the Demon Hall. If the Demon Hall is in trouble, no matter how far it is, no matter where we are, we will definitely rush back as soon as possible." Okay, the Demon Hall Master nodded. This promise made her even more moved and gratified. As expected, she didn't misjudge him. He was a good kid. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at the Vice Alliance Master and the other two. He said with a smile, "Master, Alliance Master, Hall Master, can you accept this disciple's suggestion?" Of course. The Vice Alliance Master nodded and smiled without even thinking. Compared to competing with the demonic halls in the eastern continent, fighting for control of a complete continent, this was many times better. It could be said that they had dreamed of encountering such a good thing. Now that such a good thing had fallen from the sky, only a fool would reject it. The Hall of Famers was also overjoyed. From this moment on, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance could be considered a superforce in the Sky Cloud realm. However, the Alliance Master frowned. "What's wrong with you? It's such a good thing. Why do you look a little unhappy?" The Shen Meng couple looked at the Alliance Master suspiciously. Qin Feiyang, Madman, the Vice Alliance Master, and the others also looked at the Alliance Master. "Do you really think this is a good thing?" The Alliance Master looked at the Shen Meng couple and the Vice Alliance Master and smiled bitterly. "Isn't it?" The two men and two beasts were suspicious. First of all, the Ice Dragon is behind the Blood Hall. What if the Ice Dragon comes to find trouble with us? With the Ice Dragon's strength, our Rogue Cultivator Alliance has no chance to resist. However, it's different in the Eastern Continent. To put it bluntly, the Eastern Continent is always number 2. However, it's also good that we're number 2. If there's anything, they'll go straight to the Devil Palace. In other words, if we were in the Eastern Continent, even if the Ice Dragon comes to take revenge, the Demon Hall will take care of it first. The Alliance Master said, "You old thing, you're really sinister. You actually used our Demon Hall as a shield." Chu Yun said with a dark face, "Who asked you to be the big brothers of the Eastern Continent?" The Alliance leader smiled faintly and continued, "Secondly, you all know the difference between our Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the 4 great powers. The only thing we lack is a Dominator Divine Weapon. So even if we take over the Western Continent, without a Dominator Divine Weapon, it will be difficult for us to defend this land. This is because if the temples and temples come to interfere, we will only be beaten up." That seems to make sense. The Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers nodded. The Alliance Master smiled bitterly and said, "In the past, I dreamed of being the big brother, but now that the opportunity is in front of me, I feel that it's actually quite comfortable to be the second." When Qin Feiyang and Madman heard this, they couldn't help but smile bitterly. This Alliance Master really thought it through thoroughly. Needless to say, after hearing the Alliance Master's words, being the second was indeed more comfortable. How about this? Qin Feiyang suddenly had an idea. He looked at the Alliance Master and the Demon Hall Master and said with a smile, "Since the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Hall have already cooperated, then let's continue this cooperation." Chapter 3350. Continue to cooperate? Both sides were stunned as they looked at Qin Feiyang. Yes, continue to cooperate. To be precise, it's an alliance between the Rogue Cultivators Alliance and the Demon Hall. Although the Rogue Cultivators Alliance doesn't have a sovereign divine weapon, and the Demon Hall will be at a disadvantage if they ally with the Rogue Cultivators Alliance, it will definitely be beneficial for the Demon Hall. As for the Rogue Cultivators Alliance, after forming an alliance with the Demon Hall will take care of them. Even if the Divine Hall and the Sacred Hall want to suppress the Rogue Cultivators Alliance, they will have to think twice. Qin Feiyang smiled. The Alliance Master nodded and said, "If that's the case, we can give it a try. But what if the Sacred Hall and the Divine Hall join forces? After all, the Demon Hall only has one sovereign divine weapon. Don't you still have me and Senior Brother Fengzi? Senior Brother Fengzi and I are the personal disciples of the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers. Before they make a move, they will have to think twice. As for the Ice Dragon's revenge, to be honest, based on our understanding of it, it shouldn't do such a childish thing because the Blood Hall is just a chess piece in its eyes. It doesn't matter if it's gone." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "That makes sense." The Alliance Master nodded and said with a smile, "Then it would be impolite for me to refuse your and little Fengzi's kindness?" "Ahem. We haven't expressed our stance yet. Shouldn't the alliance be a win-win situation?" Chu Yun said with a cold face. Qin Feiyang looked at Chu Yun and said with a smile, "Then what conditions do you have? Feel free to state them." "I only have one condition. I won't force you too much. Let Mo Lu enter the Western Continent," Chu Yun said. What? Let Lu enter the Western continent. Isn't that snatching the resources of the Western continent from us? The Vice Alliance Master raised his eyebrows. Chu Yun said, "We only do business and don't interfere with anything in the Western continent. That sounds good, but who knows if it will happen in the future? Besides, isn't Lu doing business to snatch resources?" The Divine Python couple snorted coldly. "As the Vice Hall Master of the Demon Palace, I have to keep my word. If I violate this rule, there is no need for you to chase me away. I will get the Demon Tower out of the Western continent myself. As for stealing resources, that's even more nonsense. We do business with integrity. Furthermore, in the past, when you were in the Eastern continent, you occupied all the cities and snatched many resources from our demon royal halls." Chu Yun sneered. In the past, when he was fighting for resources and territories in the Eastern continent, he felt that it was only natural. Now, he was ready to rule a continent, but he was not even willing to give the demonic tower a place? How could there be such a selfish person? Hearing this, the Shinmeng couple and the Vice Alliance Master were speechless. The Hall of Famers was unperturbed. He was not interested in these matters at all. His duty was to train the disciples of the Hall of Famers so that these disciples could become the future pillars of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. The Alliance leader pondered for a moment before looking at Chu Yun and nodding. "All right, I promise you. However, I also have a condition. The profits from the Demonic Tower's operations in the Western continent must be split with our Rogue Cultivator Alliance." "Why should I share it with you?" Chu Yun raised her eyebrows. "That's right. If there are benefits, we should share them together. Moreover, this is the only way we can believe and see with our own eyes that your demon royal halls will not interfere in the matters of the Western continent. If possible, let's form an alliance now. If not, we'll discuss it again." The alliance leader looked at Chu Yun and said, "This." Chu Yun looked at Elder Hua and the demon royal hall master. "I don't care. Anything is fine." Elder Hua smiled faintly. Chu Yun immediately rolled her eyes and looked at the Demon Royal Hall Master. The Demon Royal Hall Master pondered for a moment before looking up at the Alliance leader. He nodded and said, "As you wish." Straightforward. The Alliance leader smiled. "Then, how should we split the profits from the demonic tower in the Western continent with you?" Chu Yun frowned. "This matter is not urgent. When we have time in the future, we can sit down and discuss it slowly. We can't keep delaying Qin Feiyang and Lunatic because of this small matter. In short, I sincerely hope that our Rogue Cultivator Alliance and your Demon Royal Halls can continue to be so friendly." The Alliance leader smiled faintly. "As long as your Rogue Cultivator Alliance doesn't stab us in the back, our Demon Royal Halls won't do anything treacherous," the Demon Royal Hall Master said indifferently. The Alliance leader's expression froze. The Demon Royal Hall Master was obviously hinting that the Vice Alliance leader had bribed the Eighth Elder. In any case, he was implying that their Rogue Cultivator Alliance wasn't honest. However, they couldn't be blamed for this. This was because the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Royal Halls were enemies in the past. It was still a good thing for the Rogue Cultivator Alliance that the Vice Alliance leader could bribe the Eighth Elder. After all, the weight of an elder was far from what ordinary people could compare to. Besides, this was a very common thing in the past. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance bribed the Demon Royal Halls, and the Demon Royal Halls bribed the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. This happened almost all the time. Therefore, there was really nothing to complain about. Since we've already discussed it, then I sincerely wish you a happy cooperation. Qin Feiyang looked at the people from both sides and smiled. He then looked at Lunatic and asked, "Senior brother, how many disciples does the Blood Hall have?" "At least 10 million. Lunatic pursed his lips. If this was in the lower realms, just these 10 million disciples were enough to sweep through the various continents. So many? Qin Feiyang was stunned. What do you think? Lunatic was helpless. Qin Feiyang was speechless. There are so many disciples, and there are many genius disciples among them. If they stay in the Black Tortoise world, we won't have so many resources for them. This isn't the main point. The main point is that we still have to put in effort to nurture them." Lunatic shook his head. Even though these 10 million people looked like a huge force, they were actually a huge problem. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, then looked at Lunatic decisively and said, "Throw all of them to your master." Huh. The Hall of Famers was stunned. When Lunatic heard this, he immediately took out the 13 spatial divine items and threw them all to the Hall of Famers. The Hall of Famers was stunned. There were more than 10 million Blood Hall disciples, and there were many core disciples among them, as well as monstrous disciples who had comprehended the strongest law. They were all given to him just like that? One had to know. Once these people were nurtured, they would definitely be able to change an era. But these two brats were like holding a hot potato, throwing them as far as they could. They're all yours. As for how to tame them, you can decide for yourself. Lunatic chuckled. The Hall of Famers couldn't help but smile bitterly. Tame? Daring to treat these disciples of the Blood Hall as wild beasts? But in his heart, he was very excited. With so many disciples joining the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, it could be said that the quality of the younger generation of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance had instantly improved by leaps and bounds. The competition between the various forces was not entirely about the older generation. The most important thing was still the younger generation of disciples. It could be said that the more outstanding the younger generation of disciples was, the stronger the force would be in the future. Although the various big shots of the Loose Cultivator Alliance were about as strong as the big shots of the super factions like the Demon Royal Halls, there was still a huge difference between the people under them. For example, the 10 Great Elders. The Great Elder of the Demon Hall had mastered the supreme profound of the strongest law, and the other 9 Great Elders had also mastered the supreme profound of the ordinary law. But the Rogue Cultivator Alliance only had the 10 Great Elders. Even the Great Elder, the grandfather of the green-clothed woman, had only just entered the threshold of the supreme profound. In other words, so far, none of the 10 Great Elders of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance had truly mastered the supreme profound. As for the disciples below, from the last exchange, it could be judged that whether it was quality or quantity, the disciples of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance were far inferior to the core disciples of the Demon Hall. Therefore, the 10 million disciples of the Blood Hall joining the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was definitely a qualitative transformation. As for taming, these people were originally disciples of the Blood Hall. Now that they suddenly joined the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, there would definitely be some resistance. However, as a giant of the Sky Cloud realm, the Hall of Famers had a way to tame them. Don't be fooled by his image of a good old man. When he really flipped out, it would definitely make people tremble in fear. At the same time, the vice leader, Shun Meng and his wife were secretly delighted. Ruling the Western continent, forming an alliance with the Demon Hall, and taking over all the disciples of the Blood Hall. It could be said that the Rogue Cultivator Alliance benefited the most from the destruction of the Blood Hall. The Demon Hall felt as if they were working for them. Of course, to be honest, Qin Feiyang was the one who benefited the most. After all, he obtained a sovereign divine weapon, as well as the Blood Hall Master, the 9 Great Deacons, Wang Changyuan, a group of managers, and more than 5,000 secret guards. In other words, now, Qin Feiyang's subordinates were also full of experts. Then you guys go ahead. We also have to go to the Black Tortoise realm to deal with the aftermath. Qin Feiyang looked at the two sides and smiled. Okay, the vice leader nodded. Then, as if he thought of something, he hurriedly said, "When you guys leave, don't say anything again." "I won't." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Then, he took Frenzy and the others, the Horsetail Whisk, and the Blood Hall Masters group, and instantly disappeared without a trace. Wait, our sovereign divine weapon," the Demon Hall Master hurriedly shouted. "Don't worry. When it's repaired, he will naturally return it to us." Elder Hua chuckled. "I'm afraid only you would trust him so much." Chu Yun rolled her eyes. "This is called not doubting the person you use, but not using the person you doubt. Back then, when I passed on the position of vice leader to you, wasn't it the same?" Elder Hua laughed. "Fine. Hurry up and take it back. I don't want to do it anymore. It's so annoying." Chu Yun said. "Annoying? How long has it been? Take your time, little girl." Elder Hua shook his head and chuckled. He looked at the alliance leader and the others and said, "Then let's go back to the eastern continent to prepare for the migration. At the same time, we can talk about our alliance." Okay, the alliance leader nodded. With a wave of his hand, a space-time tunnel appeared. In terms of comprehension and attainment of the space-time law, if the alliance leader said he was second, no one in the sky cloud realm would dare to say they were first. Even Chu Yun and Elder Hai couldn't compare. What about him? Chu Yun pointed at the eighth elder, who was standing at the side. Everyone looked at the eighth elder, their eyes evading his gaze. The eighth elder's body and mind tensed up. He immediately looked at the group of people warily and said, "Previously in the Black Tortoise realm, you said you would let me go after capturing Elder Hai." Chapter 33:51. The group of big shots remained silent. "Are you going back on your word?" The eighth elder looked around as he retreated. He looked extremely flustered. "I did intend to let you leave, but I saw resentment in your eyes when we were in the Black Tortoise realm. With your personality, I believe that you will definitely think of ways to take revenge on us in the future." The Demon Hall Master spoke. The eighth elder's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "I won't. I swear." "Swear? Do you think this is a blood oath?" The Demon Hall Master's eyes turned cold. 9 golden lotuses appeared, and a destructive aura immediately enveloped the eighth elder. "No!" the eighth elder exclaimed and turned to flee in panic. Although he had also grasped a supreme law, it could not be compared to the supreme law of karma. One was a supreme law, while the other was an ordinary law. At the same level, at the same law, a supreme law could crush an ordinary law. Therefore, he could only flee. He did not even have the courage to fight. The outcome of a person who had lost his courage was obvious. There was no suspense. Accompanied by a miserable cry, the eighth elder's blood splattered across the sky, and his soul was destroyed. Seeing this scene, no one sympathized with him. Even the Vice Alliance Master had a cold expression. He could not be blamed for being heartless. After all, he and the eighth elder had a mutually beneficial relationship. Furthermore, who asked the eighth elder to show resentment? This was because he did not know how to endure. You can hate, but at the very least, he shouldn't reveal it in front of everyone. Isn't that just courting death? Great figures like the Devil Hall's Hall Master were all vicious and merciless. If there was a threat, they would definitely kill it in the cradle. Then, the group did not stay any longer. They turned and entered the space-time tunnel. As the group left, the place quieted down. However, what Qin Feiyong and the others did not know was that there were 2 ferocious beasts standing in the sky. They were not big, and they did not emit any aura. It was as if they had merged with heaven and earth. If one did not see them with one's own eyes, one would not notice them even if they were standing behind one. One of them was an ice dragon that was more than a meter long. Opposite the ice dragon was a snow-white rabbit with a jar of divine wine in its claws. "It's quite exciting." The little rabbit retracted her gaze and took a sip of the Xuanwu divine brew. She looked at the ice dragon and smiled. Ice dragon was expressionless. Angry? Blame Uncle Rabbit for meddling in other people's business? It can't be helped. What Uncle Rabbit can't stand the most is the stinky behavior of the strong bullying the weak. The little rabbit chuckled. A cold light flashed in Ice Dragon's eyes, and he said in a deep voice, "Do you know the consequences of going against me?" "I know." Uncle Rabbit isn't your match either. But if you really want to cause trouble, Uncle Rabbit isn't afraid of you. If worst comes to worst, we can just find the God of creation and let him be the judge. Little Rabbit said. Ice Dragon raised his eyebrows. "I say, in any case, you're a famous big shot. Why are you making things difficult for a junior?" The little rabbit was suspicious. "You don't understand. You don't have the right to know." After saying that, Ice Dragon turned around and instantly disappeared into the horizon. "Strange," the little rabbit muttered. After thinking for a long time, she still couldn't figure it out. She shook her head and said, "Who cares? No matter what, it won't implicate Uncle Rabbit." After saying that, She turned around and took a step forward, disappearing without a trace. Black Tortoise World. At this time, the Blood Hall Master, the 9 deacons, Fu Whisk, a group of managers, and the Dark Guards were standing above the herb field. Looking at everything below, their eyes were filled with shock. So many herbs, so many spirit veins and crystal veins. This is Qin Feiyang's foundation? It was their first time coming to the Black Tortoise World, and they were deeply shocked by this scene. Below, Qin Feiyang and Madman stood together and chatted. Wang Changyuan, Xingda, and the 57 Dark Guards were standing behind them respectfully. To be honest, the biggest surprise this time is that Ice Dragon, that old bastard, actually didn't come to cause trouble. Madman was puzzled. This isn't Ice Dragon's character. It's indeed a little surprising. Originally, I was already mentally prepared to face it, but since it didn't come, it saved us a lot of trouble. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to destroy the Ice Dragon's sacred sword, subdue Fu Whisk, and the Blood Hall Master. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, and Madman nodded and raised his head to look at the Blood Hall Master and the others, saying, "Then what should we do with them now?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and looked at Snowflake beside him. He also took out the dragon-subduing halberd and said with a smile, "There's nothing else. You guys can go to the land of Source." Okay. The 2 divine artifacts responded and soared into the sky, disappearing without a trace. Following closely, Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed in front of the Blood Hall Master. The Blood Hall Master quickly retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang respectfully. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, "I really didn't expect that there would be a day when you would become my subordinate. Do you feel particularly aggrieved that a dignified overlord of the Sky Cloud realm would submit to me, a mere dominator?" The Blood Hall Master was silent, but his tightly clenched fists were enough to explain everything. "Let me tell you, you won't be at a disadvantage if you follow me. You even have a great chance of surpassing people like the Demon Hall Master and the Alliance Master," Qin Feiyang said. And the Blood Hall Master looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. The 9 deacons, the group of managers, and the more than 5,000 secret guards were also shocked. The Blood Hall Master, the Demon Hall Master, and the Alliance Master had always been evenly matched in strength. There had never been a situation where one of them surpassed the other. But now, Qin Feiyang actually made such a promise? Could it be that Wang Changyuan and the 57 secret guards joined Qin Feiyang because they valued something? "Old Qin, control them first." Madman pointed at the managers and the 30 secret guards. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and said suspiciously, "Didn't you say that they have already made a blood oath?" "That's right, but we can have a double insurance." Madman bared his teeth. "All right." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Both of his hands formed seals, and one slave seal after another flew out towards the top of those people's heads. With the blood oath, he was not afraid of these people resisting, because before they could resist, the heavenly lightning had already fallen and killed them. He easily took control of those people. Then, Qin Feiyang looked at the Blood Hall Master and said with a smile, "We have known each other for a long time, but I still don't know your name." "Pei Tianhong." The Blood Hall Master said. "Pei Tianhong." Qin Feiyang murmured and said with a smile, "From now on, you will be my personal guard." "Personal guard?" Pei Tianhong was taken aback. He was a giant in the Sky Cloud realm after all. Letting him be a personal guard? If this was seen by others, wouldn't they laugh to death? Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "Being my personal guard means that I value you very much, so you shouldn't show such an expression. You should feel happy, honored, and grateful." Although Pei Tianhong was being controlled and respectful on the surface, he was actually very unconvinced. So Qin Feiyang wanted to grind down his arrogance. Sure enough, hearing these words, Pei Tianhong's loosened hands clenched again. His eyes were filled with anger, but he didn't dare to flare up. Qin Feiyang didn't pay any more attention to him. He stood aside and looked at the 9 deacons. Seeing this, the 9 deacons immediately prepared to introduce themselves. However, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "I don't need to know your names." The 9 deacons looked at each other. He didn't even want to know their names. How much did he look down on them? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Don't misunderstand. I just find it troublesome. So I'm too lazy to remember." "You find it troublesome to remember names?" The 9 of them were speechless. How lazy was this person? From now on, the Dark Guard will have 10 commanders. Wang Changyuan will be the first commander. You 9 deacons will be the second commander, third commander, and even the 10th commander, Qin Feiyang said. "You're letting me be the first commander?" Wang Changyuan, who was standing behind Qin Feiyang, was stunned when he heard this order. This was something he never expected. Because the 9 deacons had a higher status in the blood hall than him, logically speaking, the current second deacon should be the first commander. In short, it would never be his turn. Therefore, he felt like he was dreaming. "Commander Wang, what are you waiting for? Quickly thank him." A dark guard beside him saw Wang Changyuan in a daze and hurriedly pushed him. Wang Changyuan quivered and came back to his senses. He turned to look at the dark guard. The dark guard smiled flatteringly and said to himself, "Commander, please take care of me in the future." The other 56 dark guards also looked at Wang Changyuan with fawning eyes. "Don't worry, you're the first to follow the young master. I definitely won't forget you." Wang Changyuan smiled secretly and then hurriedly ran to Qin Feiyang. He knelt down on one knee and shouted, "Thank you for your trust, young master. I'll lead the Dark Guard well in the future and overcome all obstacles for you." "Stop." Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand to stop Wang Changyuan and said with a dark face, "You really have to change your flattery. It's useful to others, but I don't buy it. I only look at your actions and performance." Wang Changyuan's face stiffened and nodded. "Yes, I'll definitely change. Get up." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Wang Changyuan stood up, straightened his back, looked at the 9 deacons and shouted, "Hurry up and kneel down to thank him." Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. It was really easy to change mountains and rivers, but hard to change one's nature. At the same time, looking at Wang Changyuan's arrogant attitude, the 9 deacons were also very angry, but they didn't dare to flare up. After all, Wang Changyuan was now Qin Feiyang's favorite person. "Thank you, young master, for your appreciation." The 9 deacons knelt in the void and bowed their heads. "Get up. I don't have so many rules here. As long as you do your part and do what I tell you to do, it's fine." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "We'll keep that in mind." The 9 deacons bowed and replied. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the 9 deacons retreated to the side. Qin Feiyang looked at the upper, middle, and low-level managers. "We'll also serve the young master loyally." Before Qin Feiyang spoke, the group of people knelt down. Chapter 3352. Being kowtowed to by a group of perfection sovereigns, especially the Blood Hall's managers. If it was anyone else, they would definitely enjoy it. However, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but frown. He had never liked this, unless he met someone he hated. However, these people in front of him were all serving their own masters, so there wasn't any deep hatred. Even before the battle, he didn't know these people. Therefore, to be honest, he looked down on these people who would kneel at the slightest provocation. However, he couldn't blame them. After all, this was the law of survival in this world. In front of the strong, you had to bow and bend your knees. Living in such an illusion, this mentality was deeply ingrained and couldn't be changed in a short time. Get up. By the way, don't kneel at the slightest provocation. A person must have dignity and pride. Kneeling to parents and close relatives is fine, but other things, even the heavens can't make me kneel. Therefore, I hope that you can do the same." Qin Feiyang said earnestly. The group of managers looked at each other with a bitter smile in their eyes. Who didn't understand this logic? In this world, who wanted to kneel to others? However, if you want to survive in this world, you have to know how to lower your head. However, Qin Feiyang's words made them feel quite comfortable, as if they had found their long-lost self-esteem. The group of people got up one after another, but they still lowered their heads with a respectful expression. "From now on, you are no longer managers. All of you will join the Dark Guards and listen to the 10 commanders unconditionally. If anyone dares to cause trouble, don't blame me for being impolite. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. Yes. The group of managers nodded in response. Of course. Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Changyuan and the 9 deacons and said, as the 10 commanders of the Dark Guards, you can't use your power to bully them. If such a thing happens, then I won't be merciful either. Yes. Wang Changyuan and the others also quickly lowered their heads in response. Qin Feiyang said, Wang Changyuan, tell them the 3 iron rules. Yes. Wang Changyuan nodded, swept his gaze across everyone, and shouted, First, no killing the innocent. Secondly, you are not allowed to bully others. Third, you are not allowed to betray your comrades. Anyone who disobeys will be killed without mercy. We will remember. Everyone bowed in response. Actually, after saying so much, I just want to express one thing. Let go of the superiority of status and strength, support each other like a family, and get along harmoniously. Because this is the only way we can go further. Qin Feiyang smiled. The moment he said this, all the shadow guards fell silent. They, who were used to fighting and scheming against each other, were not used to hearing Qin Feiyang's words. There's no rush. Let's take it slow. Dan Wangkai. Qin Feiyang smiled and shouted. Whoosh! Accompanied by a piercing sound, Dan Wangkai landed in front of Qin Feiyang like lightning. Qin Feiyang pointed at Wang Changyuan and the 57 secret guards and said with a smile, help them open all the doors of potential. Okay. Dan Wangkai nodded. Open all the doors of potential? Wang Changyuan and the 57 secret guards were stunned. Then they were overjoyed. This moment had finally arrived. On the other hand, Pei Tianhong and the 9 deacons were shocked. Open all the doors of potential? What did this mean? Fu Whisk, stay here and assist Dan Wangkai. Qin Feiyang looked at Fu Whisk and said, after all, Wang Changyuan and the others were at the perfection sovereign realm and needed the help of the sovereign divine weapon. Then, he looked at Pei Tianhong and the 9 deacons and said indifferently, follow me. Young master, what about them? Dan Wangkai pointed at the 5,000 secret guards. Just let them watch. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Suddenly, he thought of something and looked at Wang Changyuan. Right? Count how many secret guards there are in total. Okay. Wang Changyuan nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and Feng Zi, Xingda, Pei Tianhong, and the 9 deacons disappeared. Soul Sealing Valley. It had become a forbidden area in the Black Tortoise world. Not to mention humans, even beasts didn't dare to step in. The reason was because it was too smelly. Anyone who passed by the valley couldn't help but vomit. Shua. When Qin Feiyang brought Pei Tianhong and the 9 deacons here, the 10 of them couldn't help but turn pale. In the past, they only saw the soul-sealing valley through the sound transmission god stone. Other than feeling disgusted, they didn't feel anything. However, when they came here personally and saw the scene below, their scalps turned numb. Was this a place for humans? Looking at Pei Wanli and the others who were suppressed by Xingdao in the valley, the 10 of them felt even more heartache. One day outside was 3,000 years here. They had already suffered here for over 3,000 years. This feeling was enough to make a person despair. Young master, we have already submitted to you. Can you let them go now? Pei Tianhong looked at Qin Feiyang with pleading eyes. I brought you here to let them go. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and looked at Xingda waved his hand and the barrier above immediately collapsed. Noticing that the barrier had collapsed, Pei Wanli and the others were stunned. They looked up suspiciously. When they saw Pei Tianhong and the 9 deacons, their empty eyes immediately lit up. Father, grandfather, save us. Everyone immediately shouted for help. Xingda shouted, the barrier is gone. Can't you come up yourself? Hearing this, the group was stunned for a moment. Then, they quickly released their divine sense and flew into the sky. Just stand far away. Don't come over. Seeing that the group was about to rush over, Xingda quickly waved his hand to stop them and covered his nose. Not to mention Xingda, even Pei Tianhong and the 9 deacons' faces were filled with disdain. Grandfather, it's all his fault. Hurry up and kill him to wash away our shame. Pei Wanli screamed hysterically. The others were also filled with hatred. Shut up. Hearing this, Pei Tianhong and the other deacons' faces changed and they shouted in unison. The group was stunned. Why was he scolding them? After suffering such humiliation, shouldn't he be avenging them? Wait a minute. Why did they look like they were afraid of Qin Feiyang? What was going on? Pei Tianhong's face darkened and he said, If you dare to say another word, young master won't have to do anything. I'll kill you first. Young master? The two words were like a bolt from the blue to Pei Wanli and the others, especially Pei Wanli, Pei Dason, and Pei Hongyu. The old man actually called Qin Feiyang young master. Even a fool would know that this form of address was an honorific used by a servant to their master. What exactly happened outside during this period of time? Why did the old man call him young master? Could it be a terrifying thought appeared in their minds at the same time? The old man submitted to Qin Feiyang? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Qin Feiyang was very powerful, but the strength of the Blood Hall was not weak either. Moreover, the Blood Hall had two sovereign divine weapons. There must be another reason. Your inner thoughts at this moment must be very interesting. The mad scientist glanced at the group and laughed. However, no one cared about the mad scientist. They were all looking at Pei Tianhong and the 9 deacons. The doubt in their eyes was very obvious. What was going on? Pei Tianhong was silent for a long time and sighed. Yes, as you think, we have submitted to Qin Feiyang. The Blood Hall is also gone. What? The group's eyes trembled. Not only did they submit, but the Blood Hall was also gone? Grandpa, you must be lying to me. How could this happen? Don't we have a sovereign divine weapon? Pei Wanli roared. The ice dragon's sacred sword has also fallen. Our sovereign divine weapon has also submitted to Qin Feiyang. The Blood Hall master lowered his head. Facing his relatives, he felt ashamed. No, I don't believe it. Why are you lying to me? Is it fun to tease me? Pei Wanli shook his head hysterically. He was the grandson of the Blood Hall master. Now that the Blood Hall was gone and his grandpa had submitted, it meant that he had lost everything. He couldn't accept that he had become an ordinary person. He couldn't accept that he would have to live under Qin Feiyang's whims in the future. He didn't know that he was thinking too much. Qin Feiyang had no intention of letting him go. An ordinary person? Living under his whims? He really couldn't understand his own situation. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. He shouted, Xingda, kill Pei Wanli, Old Hai, the chief deacon, and the Dark Guard commander's family. Yes. Xingda nodded and the power of law immediately rolled out. What? Not only Pei Wanli and the others, but even Pei Tianhong and the 9 deacons were shocked. Young master, please show mercy. When they came back to their senses, Pei Tianhong stood in front of Xingda and blocked him. He looked at Qin Feiyang and cried out. Yes, young master. Didn't you just say to let them go? The 9 deacons. No, they should be called the 9 commanders now. The 9 commanders were also looking at Qin Feiyang anxiously. I said to let them go, but I didn't say to let them all go. Those who deserve to die must die. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. We have no reason to do anything with you. Even if there is hatred, it's because of our parents. Why do we deserve to die? Old Hai's son roared. Because in your eyes, I can see the killing intent and hatred. Those who pose a threat must not be allowed to live. Moreover, Old Hai, the Dark Guard commander, and the chief deacon have all died in my hands. So all the more you can't be allowed to live. Don't blame me. If it was me and senior brother Feng Zi today, Old Hai and the rest would definitely kill all our friends and even wash the entire Black Tortoise world with blood. So compared to them, we are already considered merciful. If you want to blame someone, blame them. Why did you come to provoke us for no reason? Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and looked at Pei Tianhong. Pei Tianhong's face was filled with anger. Xingda raised his eyebrows and shouted, Pei Tianhong, you have to understand your current situation. Pei Tianhong's gaze trembled. He turned his head to look at Pei Wanli, then looked at Qin Feiyang and suddenly roared, All right, since we're going to kill them, then I'll personally end them. Boom. As his voice fell, the power of law surged, emitting a monstrous aura. Father, what are you doing? He's your grandson. Pei Dason and his wife roared. It's because he's my grandson that I have to do it personally to prevent Xingda from torturing him. Rather than living a life worse than death, it's better to be quick. The Blood Hall master roared hoarsely, and the power of law surged out. Pei Wanli and the rest screamed as their blood splattered across the sky. Looking at this scene, Pei Dason and the rest fell silent. Chapter 33:53. Because they all saw Pei Tianhong's pain. He wasn't willing to kill them, but he had no choice. If he didn't kill them and angered Qin Feiyang, everyone would die. So, rather than letting everyone die with him, he might as well kill Pei Wanli and the others to protect the others. Indeed, they couldn't blame anyone but themselves for being useless and falling into Qin Feiyang's hands. Old thing, I admire you. Frenzy looked at Pei Tianhong and gave him a thumbs up. As expected of the giant that ruled the Western continent for countless years, ruthless and decisive. But Frenzy's praise was like mockery in Pei Tianhong's eyes. He snorted and looked at Qin Feiyang. Young master, you can let the others go. I will keep my word. But I don't feel at ease letting them stay in the Black Tortoise world. If I let them out, I will be even more worried. Qin Feiyang frowned and was in a dilemma. Pei Tianhong looked deeply at Qin Feiyang and shouted at Pei Dason and the others, "Kneel down and accept your control." The group didn't resist, because it was meaningless. Resisting would only speed up their deaths. Qin Feiyang formed the enslavement seal and quickly controlled everyone. He then waved his hand and brought a group of people to descend in the sky above the central region. He said indifferently, "This is where you will be staying from now on." The group scanned the area below. Why were there only beasts and not a single person? The Black Tortoise world has a total of 6 places: East Region, West Region, South Region, North Region, Central State, and Devil's Land. This place is Central State. People used to live here, but they all left the Black Tortoise world, so it has been empty. As time passed, it became the base of the beasts. And the humans of the Black Tortoise world live in the East Region, South Region, and North Region. As for the West Region, that is where I store my blood. I don't need to explain Devil's Land. That is my base. Listen well, I will only say it once. Allowing you to stay in the Black Tortoise world is already a great mercy on my part. Therefore, it is best that you do not disturb the order of the Black Tortoise world. If there's nothing important, don't go anywhere else. Just stay in the Central Province. The living beings of the Black Tortoise world, regardless of whether they are humans or ferocious beasts, are my bottom line. Even though their cultivation is weaker than yours, if you dare to harm them, not only will you die, but you, Pei Tianhong, and you. Qin Feiyang looked at Pei Tianhong and the 9 commanders and said coldly, "You will die too, so you better restrain them." "We will." The 10 people hurriedly nodded. In addition, all the secret guards will live here from now on. Don't cause any trouble for me. As for the Devil's Land, without my permission, don't ever set foot in it. Qin Feiyang looked at Pei Dason and the others and said, "Yes." The group of people also hurriedly nodded in response. "All right, settle down by yourself." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he waved his hand and left with Madman, Xingda, Pei Tianhong, and the 9 commanders. After Qin Feiyang and the others left, Pei Dason and the others looked at the mountains below and fell silent. 3 days ago, they were still high and mighty existences that countless people in the Western province looked up to. 3 days later, they became caged birds. Not only were their lives in Qin Feiyang's hands, they didn't even have the freedom to leave the central province. Such a huge change made them unable to adapt in a short period of time. Sigh. We've already come this far. Since we're already here, let's just take it as it comes. Suddenly, a middle-aged man sighed. What else can we do? Even Lord Father has surrendered, and even the sovereign divine weapon is following Qin Feiyang. What can we do? To be able to have a place to stay and enjoy our old age is already a great fortune for us. Another old man sighed and comforted Pei Dason. Don't be sad. You and your wife are still young. Have a few more children in the future. Pei Dason forced a smile and said, Don't worry about me. Find a place to wash up. If you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have noticed. 3,000 years. I've already gotten used to the smell. The old man smiled bitterly. The devil's land. When Qin Feiyang brought Madman and the other three to the sky above the herb field, Pei Tianhong and the 9 commanders immediately saw a strange scene. At this moment, everyone was surrounding Dan Wangkai, the Whisk, Wang Changyuan, and the 57 Dark Guards. Their faces were filled with disbelief and desire at the same time. What's going on? Pei Tianhong and the others looked at each other. When they got closer, they saw Wang Changyuan and the 57 Dark Guards in the air. The whisk floated in the air and released a wisp of divine power that enveloped them. Dan Wangkai stood at the side and watched quietly. Boom! A few breaths passed. A dull explosion took place inside the bodies of Wang Changyuan and the others. Brilliant rays burst out from the clothes on their chests. Another door of potential has been successfully opened. The thousands of people surrounding them were filled with shock and envy. It can really open the door of potential? Pei Tianhong and the others looked at each other. How did they do it? Take a break and continue. Dan Wangkai took out some door of potential pills and gave them to Wang Changyuan and the others. Pills? Pei Tianhong and the others stared intently at the pills. It turned out that they were using pills to help open the door of potential. However, was there such a pill in the world? Wait, could it be the legendary first volume of the pill scripture? Immediately, the 10 of them turned their heads to look at Qin Feiyang, their eyes filled with surprise. Qin Feiyang didn't explain and said with a faint smile, Follow me. With that, he walked towards the tea garden. Frenzy looked at the 5,000 secret guards, and a hint of ridicule flashed in his eyes. He also turned and left, but he didn't go to the tea garden and ran back to his home. Xingda followed Qin Feiyang the whole time. Pei Tianhong and the others looked at each other, then looked at Wang Changyuan and the others and quickly chased after Qin Feiyang. Tea garden. The tea trees swayed in the wind. Those pieces of tea leaves were like dark green jade, flickering with multicolored light, and one could smell the fragrance of tea from afar. Qin Feiyang entered the tea garden and casually sat on a stone bench. He smiled and said, Have a seat. Pei Tianhong and the others were very reserved. They looked at the stone bench and didn't dare to sit. As a big shot of the Western continent, it was rare to see such an expression. Sit. Do you want me to invite you one by one? Qin Feiyang was speechless. The 10 of them looked at each other and sat down around the tea table. Qin Feiyang looked at Xingda at the side and said with a smile, You sit too? Yes. Xingda nodded and sat beside Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang made tea and smiled. Now that the blood halls matter is settled, when do you plan to return to Master's side? To be honest, although Xingda wasn't as strong as Pei Tianhong and the others, he liked Xingda's personality and way of doing things. If possible, he wanted to stay by Xingda's side. But he knew that Xingda was his master's confidant. He couldn't take away someone he loved. Xingda pondered for a while, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I haven't received Sir's message. If Sir wants me to go back, I'll go back. You're good at everything except for this. You're so stubborn. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Xingda scratched his head and smiled. I've already opened the door of potential for you. The blood hall's matter is also over. When I go to the Demon Land, you can return to Master's side. Master is already so old. If he were an ordinary person, he would have already started to enjoy his old age. But he's still working hard. My heart aches when I see him. Especially when the Rogue Cultivator Alliance moves to the Western continent in the future. There will be more work to be done. When that time comes, you 3 brothers must help Master share more of the burden. Qin Feiyang poured a cup of tea and handed it to Xingda. Xingda quickly took it and smiled. It's Master's fortune to have you as his disciple. Don't worry, we'll do our best to help Master. I don't dare to believe others, but I have no doubts about you. Qin Feiyang smiled and poured another 10 cups of tea. He placed them on the table, and looked at Pei Tianhong and the others. He smiled and said, "Try it." The 10 of them picked up the teacups, smelled it, and tasted it. Their eyes lit up. This tea was definitely one of the best teas. I didn't expect young master to be an expert in the way of tea. The second commander smiled. He was the second deacon in the past. I'm not an expert in the way of tea. I just try it when I'm free. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Who would believe that? If it was just for fun, why would he build such a huge tea garden? Qin Feiyong looked at Pei Tianhong and smiled. Pei Tianhong. I'll call you Old Pei from now on. As long as you're happy. Pei Tianhong was stunned. He lowered his head and sipped his tea. Qin Feiyong smiled and asked, "Back then, when the ice dragon found you and asked you to deal with us, what promise did it make to you?" It was the ice dragon's sacred sword and the dragon god sword. It promised to give these two Dominator divine weapons to us after it's done. You know how important the Dominator divine weapons are to us. I also thought that it would be easy to deal with a few people from the lower worlds, so I agreed to it. But now that I think about it, I was really stupid. If it was willing to sacrifice two Dominator divine weapons, how could you be ordinary people? Pei Tianhong was vexed. When he saw how terrifying Qin Feiyong and the others were, it was too late to regret. Because he was already on the Ice Dragon's pirate ship. If he regretted midway, not only Qin Feiyong, but even the Ice Dragon wouldn't let him go. It didn't mention the Black Tortoise World? Qin Feiyong asked. It did. Pei Tianhong nodded, then shook his head. But I don't dare to touch the Black Tortoise World. Even if I kill you, I'll have to give it to it. That's true. In terms of value, a Dominator divine weapon can't compare to a world. Actually, you can see what kind of person the Ice Dragon is. It was willing to give you two Dominator divine weapons, let alone people like you. So if you follow it, you'll be abandoned sooner or later, just like the Ice Dragon Godsword and the Sky Dragon Godsword. Qin Feiyong said. Qin Feiyong had already said this when they were outside, but because he was afraid and angry, he didn't think too much about it. But now that he thought about it carefully, he felt that it made sense. If you follow me, although it'll be dangerous, at least I won't abandon you. This is the character of I, Qin Feiyong. I'll never abandon my companions and escape alone. Maybe you won't believe it now, but you'll see when you get along with me. Qin Feiyong smiled. I hope so. The Blood Hall Master muttered. To be honest, he still didn't believe it. After living for so many years, he had never seen such a person. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.